1. All things in heaven and earth began with Hongyuan, a generation of heavenly pride. The uncrowned evil emperor has obtained the precious treasure of Hongyuan Heaven and Earth and traveled through different worlds. Despite his humble status and being looked down upon, he has no one in his arms. Carrying unparalleled treasures and practicing supreme divine skills, hidden in the market and dominating the world in the palm of one's hand. The called. Let the world of mortals run wild and the way of heaven be elusive. I break through the waves from the sky, wielding my sword and singing. My principle is to live with me and die against me. My wish is to travel around the world with beautiful families. I am an evil emperor, without a crown in heaven and earth. Evil Emperor Supergroup 915298283. You can also join the Shinshao fan group. 176410743, keywords of the novel. Uncrowned Evil Emperor of Another World without pop-ups, complete collection download of Uncrowned Evil Emperor of Another World TXT, latest chapter reading of Uncrowned Evil Emperor of Another World. Chapter 1. Evil Emperor Wind Extinction. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In the small courtyard, Feng Jueyu sat under the pavilion, gazing at the pleasant yet unfamiliar scenery around him. He couldn't help but feel an urge to die. Shit, back home, bad luck, really bad luck for 8 generations. God, I didn't offend you, did I? I stayed well on Earth, why did I send me to the border? That's right, Ben Shao killed many people, but those people are all damn people. Ben Shao is doing justice for the heavens, understand? Thinking of his own travel history, Feng Ju wanted to cry without tears that night. When the moon was dark and the wind was high, Mount Taishan Mountain was extremely crowded. Nearly 100 killers from international organizations ran to Hongyuan Gate, the ancient martial arts sect gate in the hidden world, to snatch the ancient martial arts holy treasure, Hongyuan Tianjing. Upon hearing this news, Feng De, the son of China and known as the uncrowned evil emperor, was extremely angry. How could the treasure of Huanhuan China fall into the hands of the bandits? As a result, Feng Da's killers came back from overseas after a long journey, setting up and slaughtering nearly 100 of the world's top killers on the Mount Taishan mountainside with one-person strength, including dozens of island ninjas, and finally stabbed the second-ranked Tianren master to the top of Mount Taishan. In this battle, the Wind Assassin was once more famous. Unexpectedly, when all his opponents were killed and the Hongyuan Heavenly Scripture was regained, the Wind Assassin was inexplicably shocked by an electric shock from the Hongyuan Heavenly Scripture, and burned his braids. I'm so unlucky that I can catch up with such a bullshit. Feng Ju spat in the lake, full of grievances. The Wind Assassin was not originally named Wind Juyu, but it's similar. After removing the word Yu, he becomes the 2 fearless black and white uncrowned evil emperors on Earth. Wind Ju before crossing over, Feng was not only the #1 assassin in China, but also the world-renowned king of the #1 assassins. The uncrowned evil emperor after crossing the time, Feng Ju became a useless and inexperienced official in the Tiannan city of the Taishan continent, a playboy, and even a potential uncle, who had entered another name portal and lived under someone else's influence. The huge gap left the Wind Assassin feeling depressed and speechless for 3 days. Despite the Wind Assassin's arrogance and strong adaptability, he still couldn't accept the harsh reality at the moment. Imagine what it would be like to let a soul that was previously lawless, invincible, and looked down on the world enter a body like tofu residue. Fortunately, there is a handle under this leather bag, otherwise Feng Dashao would definitely choose to commit suicide regardless of everything, and go back to the underworld to experience the feeling of reincarnation. Feeling his body nearly hollowed out by all kinds of people, Feng Da's killer once again called Bang Tianxiu for many times. The energy channels are blocked, the bone is soft, and the loss is not enough. Even if he wants to use his unique skills, he can't make it out. How can he get through such a waste? Oh my goodness, are you really planning to anger me to death? I did such a good thing, is that what I did to me? Damn it, if you give me one chance, just one time, I will definitely use the punishment sword to explode your chrysanthemum at this moment. Only the sound of fighting could be heard from the front of the square in the main courtyard. As an uncrowned evil emperor in his past life, Feng was not only proficient in medical skills and martial arts, but also excelled. He was given such a noble and then terrifying title by the people of the world, and naturally had an extraordinary sense of familiarity with this familiar voice. Upon hearing the bang-bang sound of the wooden blade hitting, Feng Juxi's habitual eyes lit up. It was the first time in 3 days that he had seen martial arts in this world. There was no reason not to look at it. Feng Ju took 3 steps and walked towards the square. In 2 steps at the center of the square not far away, there are at least 7 or 8 young people standing together. 2 of them, one wearing a green shirt and the other wearing a white robe, are quite different in age. The person in the white robe is called Shangguan, 17 years old, who happens to be at the same age as the trend. The other is his own brother. Law. Shangguan in the Tianjing continent, martial arts became popular, and the Shangguan family became famous for their martial arts skills. Naturally, they attached great importance to martial arts cultivation. Once someone in the family discovered that they could cultivate true qi, they began to cultivate it from a young age. Although Shangguan was 5 years younger than Shangguan, his martial arts had a solid foundation. Each move was precise, steady, and his sword was like a flowing cloud, with an extraordinary momentum, which was precisely the West Wind Sunset sword technique passed down from the ancestors of the Shangguan family. In his memory, Feng Ju knew that Shangguan Lingyun, who had no relatives or connections with him, was really good to him. He not only betrothed his granddaughter to him, but also bestowed upon him all his ancestral skills. Unfortunately, the original owner of this leather bag was truly an indescribable ado. He was taken to the Shangguan family when he was 9 years old, and under the careful cultivation of Shangguan Lingyun, he was still unable to achieve both literary and martial arts skills. Unfortunately, he relied on the old master to become a big loser in Tiannan city. But now it's different. Fengjueyu is still Fengjueyu, but his soul is Fengjue. The king of assassins who fears everyone in the underworld of Earth. The uncrowned emperor. After watching for a while, Feng Ju shook his head repeatedly. The 2 people on the square were both using the West Wind Sunset sword technique. Based on his previous understanding of the essence of martial arts, it is not difficult to see that this sword technique emphasizes intention rather than qi, making it a fluid and ever-changing sword technique that can be divided into 3 attacking routes: up, middle, and down. Swordsmanship is certainly exquisite, but at the age of Shangguan and Shangguan Rufan, they have not yet mastered it, and even their 12 transformations cannot be fully mastered. Shangguan is a bit better, with up to 4 changes. As for my brother. Law Shangguan Rufan, it's simply a matter of switching back and forth between the 2. There aren't many changes, and it's not in place. Losing is almost certain. At this moment, Shangguan was forced tightly by Shangguan, and in a fit of anger, he shouted in a childish voice that had not changed, "The west wind is flying with shadows." The wooden sword trembled in its wrist, and in an instant, a strange sword flower flashed through its sword light. At the same time, strands of faint purple light emanated from Shangguan Rufan's body. Suddenly, Feng Ju's eyes lit up, and an extremely excited expression appeared on his face. True Qi. Is it really an inner family mental technique? Damn it, I'm not so unlucky. How could this world encounter such a precious thing as an inner family mental technique? The martial arts of the Taishan continent have distinct levels, with a total of 7 levels of martial arts. Virtual martial arts, Qi martial arts, true martial arts, spiritual martial arts, Xuanwu, heavenly martial arts, and divine martial arts. Each level is further divided into 4 levels. Initial, middle, and high, with 4 levels of completeness. The Tai Xian martial arts are based on Qi. Practitioners first cultivate their own, true Qi, and then their martial arts skills. Each realm has obvious Qi halos, corresponding to purple, white, gold, green, blue, orange, green. Shangguan Rufan's move, the Flying Shadow of the West Wind, is one of the last two basic sword moves of the West Wind Sunset sword technique. Using his own true chi and weak all his strength, he shakes out the virtual moves of sword flowers and countless illusions to confuse the enemy. This move is well executed and can unleash the maximum power and field control ability of the next move, Sunset. Looking at the Qingxiao. However, Shangguan Ruowan had practiced for an additional 5 years compared to Shangguan Ruowan, and his rank was a full 4 ranks higher than Shangguan Ruowan, which is a perfect level of qi and martial arts. How can one not understand the reason behind this? The west wind flutters and shadows, using a sword to wield the sword and wield the sword. The body is like a peng in the sky, and the landing is as heavy as a mountain. The front move is a virtual chopping, and the sword is actually a downward move, sweeping out the green clouds as a cushion. Purple light flashes like the setting sun, and then the green light appears. All of this, Shangguan Ruowan is naturally familiar with his chest. He drew and jumped on the dry ground early on, and then lightly tapped a wooden sword on Shangguan Ruowan, who was not strong enough to fly on the ground. Shangguan Ruowan ordered a dog to grab feces and crawl to the ground, eating a mouthful of dust. In just a moment, Shangguan was like an ordinary person, defeated. Haha. Shangguan Ruowan twisted a sword technique, held the wooden sword upside down in his hand, and leaned it against his shoulder. His whole face was not red, and he couldn't breathe. He laughed loudly. Rufan cousin, your hand of looking at the sunset and the green glow is still not at home. I'll show it to you later, at least outside. Don't be like today when dogs snatch feces. If it doesn't attract people to laugh, it will ruin my reputation as a Shangguan. Haha. The more Shangguan Ruowan spoke of malice, the more it went beyond the boundaries of the same clan's bloodline. The legitimate sons and grandchildren of the second and third houses behind him, who were not ashamed, instead laughed at each other. Seeing this, the Fengda assassin's heart gradually became cold. It's just a fight, and they squeeze and insult each other. It seems that the internal unity of the Shangguan family is not united. Shangguan Rufan, who is young but not foolish, knows that in recent days, the second and third houses have been dissatisfied with the big house because their older sister is in charge of the family industry. They have been looking for opportunities to see the big house's jokes, and tears of anger have come down their faces. With the intention to reply, when they thought that their father had said not to cause trouble, they held back and could only silently walk to the side, feeling lost as he spoke. Shangguan Ruowan suddenly turned to Feng Ju's side, put his long sword in the scabbard, and walked over lightly. Brother Feng, I learned that Brother Feng accidentally fell 3 days ago and did not come to see him. Brother Feng will not blame me, will he? Sigh. If I hadn't left first that day, Brother Feng wouldn't have had such an accident. I have been feeling guilty all along. Brother Feng, you wouldn't blame me for leaving without saying goodbye, would you? Shangguan Ruowan smiled and clasped his fists. For some reason, the wind assassin suddenly felt that Shangguan Ruowan's face was mixed with some seemingly non-existent schadenfreude. Are you familiar with me? The wind assassin frowned and swallowed the words on his lips, his memories churning up. 3 days ago, By the way, 3 days ago, this guy invited Feng Jueyu to the Yunxiang building to drink flower wine. Halfway through, this guy and his companions from the southern city didn't say a word and left. He followed Feng Jueyu home alone. He accidentally fell on the way and fell unconscious for a day and a night. Although he apologized in his tone, how could he feel a bit like a weasel bidding New Year to the chicken? Is there anything fishy about this? Feng Ju had only traveled for 3 days and had not forgotten his qualities and habits as the king of assassins. With Shangguan Ruowan's malicious words alone, he immediately sensed that there might be another hidden truth. Yes, how could a good person fall to death? It's unlikely to drink too much alcohol, right? In Feng Ju's mind, he quickly reproduced the vague memory of Feng Juyu before his death. In a moment, he obtained a picture. 3 days ago, on a night when Feng Juyu was drunk and returned to his official home from Yunxiang Tower, he met a person walking towards him on the way. It was too late and he drank too much, making it difficult to see his appearance clearly. The two of them passed by, and the mysterious person knocked Feng Juyu to the ground. Then, he was hit hard by a hard object in the back of his head. Hard object strike. Feng Ju's pupils suddenly shrank and he said, Feng Juyu's death was not an accident, but someone designed and framed him. Damn it, it seems that Feng Juyu didn't live a peaceful life at Shangguan's house. After sorting out Feng Juyu's memories, Feng Juyu immediately became vigilant. Although he couldn't be sure if Shangguan Ruowen had done this, he left midway, obviously to avoid suspicion, and it was difficult to guarantee that he had an inexplicable connection with him. Seeing that Feng Ju was wandering around and didn't answer, Shangguan Ruowen couldn't help but sneer in his heart. Damn it, this bastard who lives a life waiting for death is really lucky. Zixiong's brick didn't kill him, Why didn't this fool talk? Did he just be fooled by the beating? Foolishness is also good. You deserve to use the old man's favor to show off your strength. Feng never knew that he had accidentally guessed the right point. The death of the ghost Feng Juyu was not an accident, but someone deliberately arranged it, and Shangguan Ruowen was the key to it. Except for the wind assassin himself, no one knows that the one standing in front of them right now is no longer Win Juyu, but the evil Emperor Win Ju. To readers. P.S. New book upload. Please support us a lot. Welcome new and old friends to join us. Chapter 2. Inducing Uncle-in-Law. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When speaking, Feng Ju kept an eye on Shangguan Ruowen's expression and the changes in his eyes. As the king of assassins in his previous life, Feng Ju's insight could be called abnormal. Seeing that all the malice and schadenfreude in Shangguan Ruowen's eyes were revealed, Feng Ju could almost confirm that this kid was involved in the murder of Feng Juyu. At least Ben Shao is also your brother. In law, even if he's not close, there's no need to persecute Ben Shao. Feng Bu naturally twitched twice, and he had already decided to thoroughly investigate the matter and eliminate this hidden danger in his heart. If Shangguan Wen can harm Feng Juyu once, there will be a second time. Now, Ben Shao is Feng Juyu, and he will never allow anyone to pose a threat to him under his own nose. Eliminate every threat and never give up. Wherever Brother Ruowen said, it was all due to Feng drinking too much and accidentally falling. Speaking of which, Feng would also like to thank Brother Ruowen for his hospitality that day. Feng Ju clenched his fists, with no expression of blame on his face. However, as he stared into Shangguan Ruowen's eyes, a cold and strong killing intent flashed through his eyes. Although it was as fast as lightning, flint, or meteor, he did not intentionally hide it. This strand of cold light was Feng Ju's instinct to have been involved in the mountains and seas of corpses for years, and it was Shangguan Ruowen's playboy nature that could withstand it. Is it okay? Shangguan Ruowen suddenly felt a chill all over his body, and his hair stood up straight in an instant. He had a feeling of not wanting to stay any longer and looked around in shock. Shangguan Ruowen was getting colder and colder, so he couldn't bear it. He quickly laughed and pretended to be indifferent, saying, that's good, that's good. After a few days, Brother Feng's injuries will be more severe, and I will definitely set up a table to surprise him. Let's go. Shangguan Ruowen finished speaking and quickly left the square in the front yard, wondering as he walked, it's spring now, how could it be so cold? Feng Ju watched Shangguan Ruowen leave until his back disappeared before turning around. From a distance, he saw Shangguan Ruowen pondering his swordsmanship under the willow tree. Looking back at Shangguan Ruowen's departure, he suddenly had a plan in his mind. Whether it's Feng Juyu or Feng Ju, you've always offended Ben Shao. Starting today, you can't expect to succeed again. Rufan, on the square, only Shangguan Rufan was left. Although the square was not large, the sound of this cry made Shangguan Rufan covered in goosebumps. The thought of wielding the sword and contemplating was shocking, and he almost couldn't stand still. Once again, the dog snatched feces. Not to mention him, even Feng Jueyu felt that there was a big problem with his tone. Alas, for the first time in his life, Ben Shao let a great young man go astray. What a sin! Someone shamelessly grinned and told themselves in their heart that they were unhappy, that they were unhappy. But in fact, they didn't take it to heart. My brother. Law, taking care of him more is the key. It's a family, hee. Sister. Brother. Law. Upon seeing Feng Jueyu, Shangguan Rufan's face first flashed with a disgusted expression, and then he felt innocent and unworthy of it. However, he couldn't get through that hurdle, but the brother. Law finally shouted out. Damn it, what kind of damn expression is this? Feng Dashao's eyes flashed over him, extremely dissatisfied. Originally, he was helping you, but who should I show him a stinky face? Never mind, I don't have the same understanding as you. This little child. Feng Dashao smiled happily, with no change in his face. As he approached, he reached out and rested his hand on Shangguan Rufan's shoulder, intimately resembling a pair of brothers. Shangguan Rufan is truly kind-hearted and spotless. Just as he was about to hide, he suddenly remembered that he was his brother. Law. Although this brother. Law's reputation is not very good, his character is still very poor, and his sister doesn't like him. His father said he should respect his brother. Law. Halfway through, Shangguan Rufan straightened his body again and allowed Major Feng to hug him. Brother-in-law, what's up? Shangguan Rufan asked timidly, her face turning red. She thought to herself, it's really embarrassing. They all say Feng Jueyu is a coward, but I'm so close to him. Dad, can I not respect my brother. Law in the future? Shangguan Rufan shouted in his heart. Without realizing it, Feng Dashao looked around and whispered, something's up, hee, it's still a good thing. Do you want to hear it? Good thing. Shangguan Rufan blinked his agile big eyes and looked at Feng Dashao with a puzzled expression. Feng Dashao smiled and said, yes, it's a big good thing. What good thing? Shangguan Rufan lowered his head, showing no signs of believing. He gave half of his ear to Feng Dashao, and the other half. It was completely useless, still pondering those few sword techniques. Feng Dashao originally wanted to sell tricks, but when he saw his brother. Law ignoring him, he was really distressed. His words were useless, damn it, let's just say it. So, Feng Dasho quickly transformed into Uncle Strange and whispered, did you just lose so unwillingly? Shangguan Rufan didn't look up and silently shrugged his shoulders. The sense of grievance came up again. I. He didn't say it completely, and now he was about to cry. Damn it. Feng Dashao cursed and shouted, cry a ball. A man should stand firm, with revenge and grievances. What's crying and crying? Do you want people to look down on you and promote the martial arts talent of the Shangguan family? If you lose a battle, you will only urinate. Why don't you go hold your mother's thigh? It's really disgusting and embarrassing. Not to mention, Feng Dashao's provocation was truly remarkable. With just one sentence, Shangguan Rufan stopped crying and instead looked up at Feng Jueyu with a resolute and almost wolf-like gaze, saying, who said that? How could I want to be looked down upon? I don't know, I am a martial arts genius of the Shangguan family. Then don't cry, Feng Jueyu whispered. I don't cry. Shangguan Rufan wiped the corners of his eyes and looked up again. Feng Jueyu chuckled and said, that's right, men. Losing is not shameful, losing is not shameful. Understood. Shangguan Rufan raised his small face and instinctively nodded. Suddenly, he realized that he had unconsciously become closer to Feng Jueyu, not physically, but mentally. Sister Shangguan and her companions have always said that her brother-in-law is useless, not even a scholar, and they are cowardly. They cannot listen to what they say. Why is it so reasonable to listen today? He didn't know that as the king of assassins, Feng Jueyu worked as a professional physician for 5 years, understanding people's hearts and using clever methods. Not to mention that he was an 11-year-old child, even the old martial arts world, who had lived for most of his life and was about to enter the earth, was not a match. I understand, that's good. Feng Jueyu smiled, his eyes slightly shifted closer, and he swept around. Suddenly, he lowered his body and asked in a low voice, "Do you want to win?" Feng Daxiao began to seduce underage children. I think, of course I do. Shangguan Rufan was completely defeated by Feng Jueyu's attack and was invisibly controlled by him. However, immediately, he became discouraged and said, "But it's impossible. Brother Ruowen's strength is already at the middle level of true martial arts, for stages higher than mine. I am not his opponent." "That's a real competition of strength," Feng Jueyu said with a stern expression. "I mean the competition you just had. You can win, and you can win very well." "Can you win?" "It's still very impressive." Shangguan Rufan, who knows, Feng Jueyu's most sharp words are the last sentence. A very impressive win. Children are always proud and unwilling to accept defeat. If Shangguan Rufan knows he can win and still wins with great glory, what should he think? "Of course, my heart is surging at this point. Feng Jueyu's goal has been achieved. How can we win?" Shangguan Rufan asked, but he immediately remembered that his brother-in-law was nothing but a jerk, not even a floor sweeper. How could he know he could win? Still looking confident. Feng Jueyu, however, was unaware of his thoughts and instead said, "I'll tell you, but you can't say it. Even if someone asks you, beats you, or even scolds you afterwards, you can't say it's a secret between us. If you promise me, I'll tell you. How about that? Hit me. Curse me. You can't even say it. Why?" The child had a simple temperament and naturally asked questions. And this is precisely Feng Jueyu's concern. He doesn't want to reveal his identity early on. You know, a top assassin must first understand how to hide himself. Nowadays, the entire Shangguan family knows that they are cowards and useless. If they can't succeed in literature or martial arts, isn't that the best way to conceal themselves? Before restoring one's previous life skills, one must never expose them. And Feng Jueyu chose to help Shangguan Rufan in large part because children are easy to control. Despite Shangguan Rufan being only 11 years old, his intelligence is high and he often doesn't go out, similar to 7 or 8 years old. As long as he recognizes it, this is a secret that only exists between himself and him, and he won't reveal it in a short period of time. Of course, before that, Feng Jueyu has a second guarantee plan. "Then don't ask, promise me first, and I'll tell you." Feng Jueyu stood up, turned his head, with a strong sense of whether you wanted to listen to you or not. Shangguan Ruowen thought for a moment, but couldn't help but want to know how to defeat Shangguan Ruowen. To vent his frustration, he finally nodded solemnly and said, "Okay, I promise you, I won't say anything." Feng Jueyu glanced at him and said, "No, you have to swear." "Why are you so annoying?" "All right, tell me, how can I swear?" Shangguan Rufan became a bit impatient. Feng Jueyu looked at him and chuckled, saying, "Swear, if you speak up, the little chicken will never be able to pee." Ah! Shangguan Rufan's face turned green after listening and he thought to himself, indeed, as Sister Shangguan said, my brother-in-law is a scoundrel and cannot urinate. Isn't it that he wants to suffocate to death? Isn't that supposed to be suffocated? As he thought, Shangguan Rufan casually said it, his face turning from green to red. Yeah. Feng Jueyu didn't feel too embarrassed, but this was the best strategy for dealing with children. So you must keep your word. As a man, when wandering in the world, trust is the top priority. You can break your head and shed blood, but you can't break your promise. This is called a two-pronged approach. How can Shangguan Rufan resist? Firstly, I felt that my brother-in-law was very rogue, and then upon hearing this, I found it very reasonable. I immediately nodded and took the oath. Can you speak now? Shangguan Rufan was very anxious. If he learned well now, he would be able to regain face in a few days. Feng Jueyu pulled him aside and the two squatted in the grass. Feng Jueyu said mysteriously and solemnly, I make you swear that it's because it involves the big secret of the high-ranking official family, so you must treat it correctly. Big secret. Shangguan Rufan's eyes lit up. Feng Jueyu said, that's because the west wind fluttering shadows and the setting sun gazing at the green clouds are not the strongest killing moves of the west wind sunset sword technique. Behind these two moves, there is another move that is very powerful. Ah! Shangguan Rufan was about to jump up after listening to the explosion. Fortunately, Feng Jueyu had already anticipated it and grabbed Shangguan Rufan, covering his mouth with his other hand. Keep it down, this is a big secret. I accidentally discovered these moves in the classic books in the study, and I don't even know your grandfather's plan. After listening, Shangguan Rufan went crazy and whispered, do you really have it? Can you beat Shangguan Rufan? The little guy didn't even call out his brother, indicating how happy he was. Feng Jueyu rolled his white eyes and said, of course, let alone Shangguan Ruowen. Once you practice well, you will be invincible in the world. Invincible in the world. Shangguan Rufan could no longer distinguish whether it was true or false, and his eyes were filled with scenes of wielding his sword and wielding the power of the world. He hugged his sister with his left hand and his sister with his right hand. Feng Jueyu held it tightly and vigorously, his stomach twitching along with him. Seeing Shangguan Rufan's expression, he waited for him to use this move. I don't know how Shangguan Rufan would feel. I was so excited about that scene. You speak quickly, speak quickly. Shangguan Rufan shook Feng Jueyu's arm, not even realizing it. For just a moment, he treated Feng Jueyu as his own. Kiss. Kiss. Brother-in-law, okay, listen. Feng Jueyu felt almost done and leaned forward with the tip. Remember, the last two sentences are. After speaking, Shangguan Rufan tilted his head in thought and asked, brother-in-law, what? What is chrysanthemum? Chrysanthemum. Feng Ju felt like his stomach was about to explode, but he forced himself to hold back. That's just a statement. I haven't learned martial arts, but I think this should mean a loophole. That's a loophole. Think about it yourself, right? Continue to induce weakness. The current Shangguan Rufan could no longer escape the clutches of Feng Jueyu, bowing his head and continuing to ponder. Feng Jueyu couldn't stand it anymore, his face flushed and purple. Seeing that Shangguan Rufan hadn't responded for a while, he felt so anxious and wanted to tell the truth all at once. Chrysanthemum is. I'm so stupid. He reminded again, think about it again, how did Shangguan Ruowen avoid the sunset and the green glow, and where is the biggest flaw? The biggest flaw. Shangguan Rufan still couldn't figure it out. Feng Jueyu is going crazy, is this also a genius? What kind of jerk is that? Unable to do anything, Feng Jueyu came up with a plan and said, by the way, I remember there was a picture in the classics. After reading it, you can think about it. If you understand it, you will definitely understand. That's what I think. As he spoke, Feng Jueyu drew a humanoid diagram on the ground, which was actually a move of watching the blue clouds at sunset, from jumping to landing. He just changed the momentum of this move, with his right foot facing forward and landing without kneeling, half kneeling. In this way, the momentum of the move changed greatly. It was no longer just a castration, with all the flaws on his back exposed, but could use the support of his right foot to perform various movements such as turning, spinning, and rolling on the ground. The change in this move can be said to be powerful, but it is a unique killing move that the Wind Assassin has brought together the leaders of various families and years of assassination experience to make temporary changes. It can be called a divine stroke, reaching the pinnacle of brilliance. Of course, if Shangguan doesn't need to understand too much, he just needs to know how to turn around. In this way, Feng Jueyu drew a figure half kneeling and looking at the moon. Shangguan Rufan understood it at a glance and shouted, "I understand." So the chrysanthemum is. It is. Feng Jueyu was sweating profusely, and profusely. He said to himself, "You finally understand, but I'm exhausted." Feng Jueyu threw the wooden branch in his hand to the ground, clapped his hands, and stood up, saying, "Do you understand? Then go quickly and practice with Shangguan Ruowen, and bring back the venue. Remember, you have sworn not to go." Feng Jueyu smiled and turned to leave. Shangguan Rufan suddenly stopped him and said with a wry expression, "But brother.in.law, is this not good? After all, it's so unsightly where the thorn is." What else did Feng Jueyu do? After listening for a moment, he suddenly cursed loudly, "What nonsense is not honorable? Do you dare to say that the sword moves created by the senior official's ancestor are not honorable? Do you want to deceive the teacher and destroy the ancestor?" Upon hearing this, Shangguan Rufan was sharp-witted and thought to himself, "Yes, my brother.in.law doesn't know martial arts. This move must be from the classics. Since it's from the classics, it was created by our ancestors. There's no shame in it. I'm really damn it. I suspect our ancestors." Thinking about it, Shangguan Rufan slapped his mouth devoutly and gratefully, saying, "Thank you, brother.in.law. Don't worry, my brother.in.law. Dad didn't pass on this move to me and my cousins. There must be his intention. I don't want to be beaten. I know what to say. It's good to understand." Feng Jueyu gave Shangguan Rufan a meaningful glance. He didn't expect this kid to be really ghostly, and could even think of this layer of meaning. "If someone asks you, what would you say?" Shangguan Rufan gave me a look that was not as good as yours and said, "It's easy to handle. I'll say I'm self-taught." After speaking, Shangguan Rufan flew towards the backyard with his wooden sword. From afar, a sharp and tender voice full of war came over. "Brother Ruowen, I've come up with a solution to crack it. Let's compare again." Feng Jueyu looked at the moon gate in the backyard with a dull expression on his face. After a while, he gave a thumbs up and said, "This child, really Nima, is a talented person." After reciting, Feng Jueyu held on to his stomach, which was about to cramp, and walked towards the courtyard where the big house was located. Chapter 3. The Fury of the Old Master Shangguan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Wind Assassin, who has traveled through this world, became a spicy teacher and successfully induced a good young man to choose shameless revenge. After that, his mood improved a lot. After calmly returning to the east side of the mansion where the mansion was located and having breakfast, I hung a toothpick and returned to my bedroom. Before reaching my destination, suddenly there was a piercing, inhumane, ghostly crying, earth-shattering, unprecedented, and unknown scream above the nearly 1,000-acre mansion of the Shangguan mansion. This scream was like the deep cry of a night owl, still a large group, scattered all over the mountains and fields, crying together, shocking and shaking the whole world, breaking through the clouds and soaring into the sky, spreading for thousands of miles. Ah! My but eyes, puff. The Wind Assassin, who was walking in a zigzag pattern while admiring the scenery in the courtyard, stumbled and fell on the stone steps below. A piece of osmanthus cake that had not been swallowed in his mouth was sprayed out, his face red and purple, and his stomach was twitching with joy. Waha, my brother.in.law has succeeded. This shout is so captivating, but unfortunately I didn't see it with my own eyes. As soon as he thought of the scene of Shangguan Ruowen being attacked on the 15th day of the 8th lunar month, the Fengda assassin stood in place, laughing and laughing. The servants around him were all puzzled. They didn't know that the screams coming from the front yard were caused by the representative in front of them, who was not well liked in the mansion and had always been recognized as incompetent and cowardly. They thought that the uncle-in-law had drunk and broke his head, causing him to lose his heart and go crazy. Look at the action of the would-be uncle. His left hand clasps his stomach, smiles back and forth, sprays rice, and his right hand reaches up to his rear fart and scratches his thigh twice. That action is simply unattractive, despicable, and acts like a dog. What's the appearance of Shangguan's uncle? It really disgraces Shangguan's house. The wind assassin disregarded the almost contemptuous and sarcastic gazes around him. After laughing for a while, the haze that had accumulated in his heart for 3 days was swept away, and his mood was as good as the bright September sun. Well, since heaven has given me a chance to be reborn, I still want to live another wonderful life. In the previous life, I was an uncrowned evil emperor, and in this life, I still want to become the king of assassins in the Taiwan continent. After laughing, the wind assassin stood on the steps, gazing at the spring scenery of the courtyard and the fresh fragrance of the willows. Once again, a powerful and commanding aura reappeared on Feng Zhu's body. In his mind, a segment of ancient literature that had only existed for 3 days was presented, and the wind assassin's eyes suddenly became sharp like eagles and falcons. Hongyuan Tianjing, how much secret does Hongyuan Gate actually hide? The Hongyuan heavenly scripture in Feng Zhu's mind is the treasure of the hidden world-famous gate Hongyuan Gate on Earth before his passage. Speaking of which, the reason why Feng Zhu passed through was also due to this scripture. The hidden map in the scripture is already mysterious enough. Strangely, this Hongyuan scripture can still emit electricity to bring himself to another world. If we don't study it carefully, how can we live up to ourselves? Thinking of this, Feng Zhu waved away all the unwillingness and grievances in his heart and walked towards his bedroom with firm and resolute steps. In my previous life, I was the wind dead. In this life, I am Feng Zhueyu. The name, although different, has not changed in essence. I am still myself, still the uncrowned evil emperor. I, Feng Zhueyu, am destined not to be nameless. What about in another world? With the experience of the Assassin King in the previous life and the medical skills of the Holy Hand, I can still turn my hands into clouds and cover my hands with rain. In a unique small building of Shangguan Mansion, Shangguan Lingyun sat firmly on a tiger chair, glaring angrily at Shangguan Rufan, who was only 12 years old and kneeling on the ground in the room. His old faces on both sides were flushed with anger, with a tinge of purple and a tinge of blue. There are quite a few people sitting on both sides of the room. Old Mount Taishan, who suffered from a stroke, Old Mother.in.law Shangguan Tinglong and Chang Yufeng are all in the room. On the other side are Shangguan Luyun, the second son in the second room, and his wife, and Shangguan Ruowen, the younger brother of Shangguan Ruowen. Shangguan Ruowen sat on the chair with half a fart, neither falling nor hanging. He hummed and gritted his teeth, and then looked at the high bulge in the middle of the hanging fart, as if someone had forcefully exploded from behind, which was extremely ridiculous. Shangguan Rufan knelt in the center of the room with an unwilling expression on his face, his small mouth bent down with a suppressed expression, and his head lowered with a strong sense of preferring to die rather than surrender. Bastard, you're just a jerk. In all these years, there has never been such a ridiculous thing happening in the high-ranking official family. I once said, the key points of martial arts competitions among the descendants of the clan are endless, don't you understand? Have you taken my words as a deaf ear? The old man from Shangguan slapped the desk in front of him fiercely, causing the tea bowl and inkstone on the desk to tremble 3 times. The tiger's eyes and beard trembled without wind, clearly infuriated. In fact, I can't blame this old man either. In the early morning, just after getting up, the old man was drinking fragrant tea in his study, shaking his head and mind, and enjoying himself while reading. Suddenly, a scream that didn't look like a person broke into the old man's study in the early morning, and in a fit of anger, he called all the people involved to his study for trial. The first trial doesn't matter, the reason for obtaining it is so absurd and ridiculous. My favorite grandson even stabbed my third grandson in the asshole, and the old man almost became angry. One Buddha was born and 2 Buddhas ascended to heaven. Seeing the old man furious, everyone present, like the leader Shangguan and the second Shangguan Luyun, shrank their necks. No matter how this matter is said, if it spreads, it will probably make them laugh. My own brother, during a martial arts competition, one wielded a wooden sword and stabbed another fart, but it was extremely comical. Even more ridiculous was that the person who was stabbed was in the Qi and Wu realm, where his martial arts cultivation was higher than his 4th level. This incident caused not only the second room, but also the big room, who couldn't lift their heads and wished to find a crack in the ground to get inside and feel extremely depressed. Shangguan looked at his son kneeling on the ground and couldn't help but come forward and strangle this little beast to death. Damn it, it's not good to poke in any place, but it happens to be there. Damn it, I've made you lose face. Thinking about it this way, Shangguan still felt sorry for his son, so he stood up and said, "Father, calm down." Tingfeng's lack of discipline led to a joke, causing this beast to corrupt his family. Tingfeng will immediately take this beast back and punish him properly. Then he turned to Shangguan Luyun and said, "Second brother, this matter. Alas, big brother has to compensate you." After hearing this, Chang Yufeng was greatly dissatisfied in her heart. After all, she had a child in the middle of the year and didn't have time to take care of it. Punish it. Punish me, she stood up and said, after all, Rufan was also a careless mistake. Considering that he was young and immature, I hope my father and younger brother can understand more. Young. Not sensible. After hearing these words, Shangguan Ruowen's face turned blue. Auntie, he's not sensible. He clearly did it on purpose. Look, he stabbed me. Oh, it still hurts. It hurts. Shangguan Ruowen twisted his round buttocks, accidentally causing the injury. The heartfelt pain made him feel cold again. Shangguan Liuyun's face was also not good looking, and the second lady was even more infuriated. Just as she was about to argue, the old man got angry first. Pap. The old man slapped the table again, pointing to Shangguan Ruowen and cursing, "You shut up and fuck your mother. You're so angry that a perfect martial artist can make a perfect virtual martial artist prick a round egg, and you even lick your face and cry here. My Shangguan family's face has been ruined by you." This barrage of insults left the younger generation in the room dumbfounded. Shangguan Luyun coughed wildly a few times, almost not hiding his face in his pants. He felt very frustrated and said, "My godfather, you don't curse like that. Ruowen is his mother, but my wife is here." Woo-woo. The second lady originally intended to seek justice for her son, but upon hearing this scolding, her face turned pale with anger. She dared not confront the old man in person and sat back in anger, glaring at her son with hatred. "You little fool, you have implicated the old lady." Shangguan Ruowen's heart was filled with death. For no reason, he was stabbed and exploded by someone. Not to mention, he implicated his own mother. There is really no place to vomit. And you. The old man couldn't finish his anger and turned to look at Shangguan Rufan, who was kneeling on the ground. At a young age, he learned such a terrible move. He's your brother, your brother. You can also do it. Fuck him. Shangguan Rufan pouted stubbornly as he listened. If it were someone else, this kid would definitely be unable to resist singing the opposite tone and making a strong argument. Unfortunately, it was the old master of the Shangguan family who became angry. He was a true presence, and no one in this family dared to shout a few words to him with a red face. Even Shangguan Rufan could not do it. But he was very dissatisfied in his heart, very dissatisfied. What is Grandpa yelling at me for? Humph, this is a swordsmanship passed down from our ancestors, why can't it be used? It's still 3 rotten, I don't think it's 3 rotten at all. This move is so effective, thanks to my brother. Law. If he hadn't taught me this move, I wouldn't have been a match for Shangguan Ruoan if I hadn't practiced it for a few years. Hee, that was really satisfying just now. I've never been so satisfied before. The child had a straightforward and schemless personality, and was initially quite unhappy. However, after thinking for a while, his mind jumped back to the amazing and ghostly martial arts taught by the Wind Assassin. Looking back on the moment when he had just looked at the moon with one sword, and took Chrysanthemum straight, and had been crushing himself to death, Shangguan Ruoan burst into tears. He was very happy in his heart, but when he couldn't control it, he burst into laughter. The room was originally filled with gunpowder and smoke, but when Shangguan Ruoan stirred it up, everyone looked over with strange eyes. A few maids stood behind, covering their mouths with their small faces that turned red, and no one dared to laugh. The popularity of the second husband's blood surged, and her son suffered such injustice. If he didn't speak anymore, she stood up with a loud voice and said, "Dad, look at him. He can still laugh. Animal, I don't know how to reflect on what happened and still have the face to laugh out loud. I'll beat you to death, you despicable son." Shangguan Tingfeng felt like he was going crazy with anger and raised his hand, about to hit. Chang Yufeng took a brisk step and hugged her son tightly. With a protective expression on her face, she looked up at Shangguan Tingfeng and said, "Fight, fight. If you want to kill your son, first kill me. You." "Dad, look, they're still protecting us now." The second wife was filled with righteous indignation, her full chest surging rapidly like waves. Shangguan Tingfeng and Shangguan Luyun understand that the old man is not angry with Shangguan Ruoan's move of looking back at the moon, but with the disciples in his sect who are cruel to each other. The Shangguan family has big houses, second houses, and third houses, and it is common to seize power and property. Whenever there is a chance, he will use the topic to make things worse. Therefore, the last thing the old man wants to see is someone taking advantage of it to make small things bigger. Shangguan Luyun immediately stood up. Even if he didn't get angry anymore, he still scolded his wife, "Bitch, shut up for me. With my father here, there's no right for you to speak." "Me." The second lady was taken aback for a moment, pulled out the handkerchief she was holding in her arms, covered her face, and crawled onto the tea table, howling in mourning. "You still scolded me, Dad." "He scolded me, pitiful for our mother and son. It's unreasonable for you to bully us like this." The second lady's crying caused chaos in the entire small building. Outside, the servants of the high-ranking officials stretched their necks and whispered to each other. When mentioning that amazing scene, they couldn't help but laugh while holding their stomachs. Looking inside the building again, the old man Shangguan's beard was stirred up by his own anger, flying all over the sky. He sat on the tiger chair and pounded his chest and feet, saying, "It's all upside down, it's all upside down, get out of here, get out of here." Seeing the old man getting really angry, Shangguan Luyun drove his wife and cursed loudly, "Bitch, come back with me. Ruowu, have someone take your brother away. Don't embarrass yourself here." Madame Eyre is full of grievances, but she is not someone without vision. She knows that she can no longer provoke the old man at this time, so she wiped her tears and borrowed the steps to go down. Even Shangguan Ruoan looked bitter, and there is no way. Who wants the old man to remain silent? If he wants to punish Shangguan Ruoan, he still needs to find another way. The people in the second room escaped unhappily, and the big room was also preparing to run away. However, the old man had not yet arrived home in a daze. After patting the table for a while, he saw Shangguan Tingfeng and Chang Yufeng walking to the door with Shangguan Ruoan, and immediately shouted, "You three, stop for me." Chapter 4. 15 Phenomena to be seen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shangguan Tingfeng, a middle-aged son, and his wife usually regard Shangguan Ruoan as the top treasure in their hands. Although there was a strong hatred towards him just now, he mostly pretended. He wouldn't have to teach his son, who is not yet 12 years old, a lesson. So, when Shangguan heard the old man asking everyone to get out of the hall, he was not only dissatisfied, but also, like being granted amnesty, wanted to run away with his wife and son. Unfortunately, before he could run out of the room, he was shouted back by the old man with a loud shout. A family of 3 returned to the house and let Shangguan kneel on the ground. Shangguan was sweating profusely in the wind. He knew that his father was not a good troublemaker and highly valued the harmony in the family. It seemed that today would not be better, so he quickly lowered his head and waited for the old man's rebuke. Shangguan Lingyun's tiger eyes were wide-eyed, and his palm, the size of a fan, pressed against the table to print a shallow 5-palm print. He stared at Shangguan Rufan in the hall and asked, "Rufan, who did you learn that move from? It's so shameless. Say." In fact, not only Shangguan Lingyun was puzzled, but Shangguan Tengfeng was also full of doubt when he looked at his son. Although he was very talented in Xiangong, he had always been afraid that he would not be able to chew too much and did not teach him too many moves. How could he suddenly comprehend a move that was still very powerful? How could that move be used so accurately? Because Shangguan Ruowen was defeated and the older generation was not present, Shangguan Tengfeng, like Shangguan Lingyun, wanted to know what happened. The process of the martial arts competition. Do you not know that at this moment, Shangguan Rufan had another idea? He had long admired the wind killer to the heavens in his heart. My brother in law is really powerful, Grandpa really asked about this matter. This is the secret of the Shangguan family. Shangguan Ruowen and Shangguan Ruowu did not learn this move. Although Grandpa was angry, did he see that I knew this move and want to ask for the source? No, I am a handsome man and cannot betray my brother in law. Besides, I have sworn that if I speak out, the little chicken will not be able to pee. If the wind assassin knew at this moment that Shangguan Rufan would be like this, he would definitely stroke his forehead with his hand and ask cruelly. This child, it's so innocent. Wow. Shangguan Rufan, who had made up his mind to run all the way to the dark, even Feng Jueyu did not expect that the so-called agreement between men played an extremely important role in protecting his identity from suspicion. Feeling the old man's unfriendly gaze, Shangguan Rufan straightened his waist and answered with a childish and resounding voice, "Grandpa, that move was created by me, no one taught me." Self-created. Shangguan Lingyun, Shangguan Luyun, and Chang Yufeng were momentarily stunned. The 3 people in the study are all proficient in Xiangong and martial arts. Shangguan Lingyun is a mid-level master of Tianwu, with an extraordinary high cultivation level. Shangguan Tengfeng is also a Xuanwu high-level practitioner. Even if Shangguan is extraordinary, the mother-in-law of the wind assassin is still a cultivator in the true martial arts realm. Who doesn't know the strength of the self-created martial arts? Not to mention anything else, among the contemporary talents on the mainland, there are few and far between who can create their own moves, and those who have created martial arts moves are even the pinnacle of existence on the mainland. Can you create your own swordsmanship as a child in your weak crown year? Is it really fake? 3 people, take a look at me, take a look at you, and in a moment, I can't come back to my senses. The old man practiced martial arts throughout his life. When facing difficulties in the Tiannan kingdom, he even assisted the country's generals in expeditions. He can also be considered a formidable figure waiting for war. How could he not understand the importance of creating his own martial arts? The old man thought for a moment and suddenly felt a bit confused. If what Shangguan Rufan said was true, then Shangguan's family would have produced a martial arts genius. Not only can it not be punished, but it should be greatly rewarded. Thinking of this, the old man's anger dissipated quite a bit, but after all, he was not blind and confused. He created his own martial arts skills, how could it be so easy? Did he let this kid run into a dead mouse? A sudden inspiration and a chance encounter. After pondering for a while, the old man suppressed his anger and patted the table in a deep voice, asking, "You are not ashamed to speak big?" You have created your own martial arts skills. Although my ancestors in the official family have not had such talent for generations, they have also understood the truth and will not speak recklessly. If you use a wooden sword to harm your fellow disciples, I may not punish you, but if you lie or do not correct your mistakes, your guilt will be unforgivable. Chang Yufeng was surprised and quickly advised, Fanner, stop talking nonsense. Just admit and correct your mistakes, and don't make Grandpa angry. Shangguan Tingfeng's gaze is also like this. Upon hearing this, Shangguan Rufan couldn't agree and shook off Chang Yufeng's hand, arguing, Mom, I didn't lie to you. It was really my own creation. I don't believe it. I still have a mnemonic here. The mnemonic. The three of them were stunned again. This practice of martial arts and art has been passed down through mnemonic formulas. For thousands of years, the top generation of Tai Xian have supplemented them with essential mnemonic formulas in order to pass on their martial arts skills. Only by allowing people to analyze and understand them can they further promote and develop them. Shangguan Rufan is not only able to create a move, but also able to weave a mnemonic, but it is greatly extraordinary. Shangguan Lingyun's face suddenly turned cloudy, and he was very good at observing his words and expressions. He saw that Shangguan Ruofang had a mnemonic, and he became interested in hearing it. Okay, since you said you have a mnemonic, then practice that swordsmanship. Speak the mnemonic and let your grandfather and father listen to it. If it's true, I can let your father not punish you. Really? Shangguan Rufan's eyes lit up after hearing this, and he stood up excitedly with one hand propped up. He ran to the side and pulled out the precious blade hanging on the wall in the study. A white stream of light flashed across the space in an instant. Grandpa, Dad, Mom, you guys keep an eye on it. This move is like this. As he spoke, Shangguan wielded his sword lightly, and the first one to use it was the West Wind Sunset Sword technique. With a strong voice in his mouth, the west wind flutters and shadows. Shwa shwa shwa. Sword light flashing, cold air pressing, looking at the sunset and the green glow. Another move, opening and closing wide, with swords moving forward and forth, accompanied by the true qi of Xiangong, the purple light overflowing. Although the study was not small, the air was suddenly filled with a fierce and unparalleled aura, which made Shangguan Laozi, Shangguan Tingfeng, and Chang Yufeng nod and praise incessantly. Well, although Fanner is young, he has a lot of talent in martial arts. These two sword techniques are already 60% mature, and it is likely that he will create his own move afterwards. If it really goes as he said, this move can break the sword move of Shangguan Ruowen. Fanner will be the material that I can create in the Shangguan family. The old man from Shangguan twisted his white beard that reached his chest and nodded repeatedly, speaking of which, it was too late. At this moment, Shangguan Rufan, who jumped up with his sword and angrily slashed down, shook his wrist and then swept across, igniting several purple sword flowers. Suddenly, he jumped up from the ground and tilted his slender body at a 45-degree angle. He raised his sword with one hand and pulled out nearly 5 sword flowers, piercing the roof and jumping up to a height of 1 meter. This sword technique is quite coherent, with a great momentum of flowing clouds and water. The three people in the room all know that Shangguan Rufan has some foundation. Even if they had killed him before, they would not have believed that Shangguan Rufan would have used such a clever move. If it weren't for witnessing it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed that he could stab such a stunning and sharp sword. The three of them opened their mouths wide at the same time, looking incredulously at the youngest descendant of the 12-year-old Shangguan family. The shock in their hearts was indescribable. As martial arts experts, how could the three of them not see the subtlety of this move? The West Wind Sunset Sword technique mainly involves the last two moves. The move of Wang Qingxia is a killing move, while the move of Lu Ru Sun and Qing Xia Bai Xian can use the old sword move. Even if this sword cannot kill the enemy, it will still damage them to the greatest extent. Therefore, the biggest flaw is that there is no back move available except for the forward attack. And this forward attack requires deep martial arts support. For example, Shangguan Ruowen couldn't use it naturally, which caused him to lose to Shangguan Ruowen for a long time in this move. After all, his martial arts did not reach the maximum killing power and speed of landing like the sun, and the green glow appeared. As far as Shangguan Lingyun knows, this move has no other way but to continue 6 changes. However, Shangguan Lingyun, who has unique vision, saw that when Shangguan Rufan used his last move, he deliberately did not turn Luo Qingxia into a solid move, but instead transformed the deadly move into a half-solid and half-empty move. In this way, there will be a lot more changes, especially at the moment of landing. The tip of the right foot intends to move 90 degrees to the left, facing forward with the outer foot of the right foot. This is a miraculous and pinnacle of change. You should know that when your toes charge forward and your strength is lowered, it's as difficult as heaven to change your trajectory. With this change, Shangguan Rufan's own strength is left a few points behind. You can use your waist and foot strength to apply your strength to the ground, and then use the rebound to give back to yourself, making a myriad of changes. This change is not just in one direction, but can be achieved in any 360-degree direction. I want to escape, and my family is everywhere. When facing a kill, simply find the opponent's position, use your strength to jump back and spin again, especially with the word spin, which can fully unleash your swordsmanship and double your strength. Shangguan Ruowen relied on his profound Xiangong Qi, leaping high and high. Naturally, his butt was facing Shangguan Ruowen's back. He didn't know that Shangguan Ruowen could still turn around and stab him like a top. Looking at this position, where else could he stab without piercing his butt? Finally, the 3 of them understood where Shangguan Ruowen was defeated and why he suffered such a humiliating defeat. This move was clearly a brilliant one, complementing both offense and defense. With his family sword manual memorized by rote, Shangguan Ruowen could not have imagined that Shangguan Ruowen had taken the initiative to change his swordsmanship to such an extent, and if he did not fail, he would not be able to forgive the heavens. And such a brilliant move was actually created by a 12-year-old child. It's amazing. The old man Shangguan was only too pleased to think that such a brilliant move was obtained by the wind assassin who had traveled across the earth and had more than a decade of killing experience. This move combined the strengths of various families, including the assassin's extreme cunning and toxicity, coupled with the exquisite bravado, to achieve such a ghostly and ultimate skill. It can be said that the move of the wind assassin is not only not simple, but also very complex. If all of it is integrated and connected, it can evolve into at least 30 sword techniques. Not to mention developing the West Wind Sunset sword technique, it is possible to transform it into a peerless sword technique. Unfortunately, the old man Shangguan couldn't help but think that this move came from the hand of Feng Jueyu, who had been in the Shangguan family for 8 years and hadn't even practiced his true qi. He thought it was really his grandson's innate talent. After reading it, the old man from Shangguan immediately reached out his hand and loudly praised it. Okay, it's really amazing. This move is so versatile, it's like a stroke of genius. Tingfen, you have given birth to a good son. Shangguan Tingfen was also intimidated by his son's move, which exceeded the original power of Shangguan's West Wind Sunset sword technique. Both the cleverness of the move and the power of the sword technique were greatly improved. Upon hearing his father's praise in person, who was never good at praising others, he suddenly felt a light on his face. He had already run away from his anger over his son causing trouble just now and said to himself, "Look, don't even see whose son it is." In addition to feeling proud, Shangguan Tingfen didn't forget to be humble and immediately said, "It's all because my father taught me well. After all, the blood flowing from my child's body is given by my father." The flattery skills of Shangguan Tingfen are impressive, and this time the old man's mood is greatly boosted. You said it well, you said it well." His gaze slowly turned to Shangguan Rufan. The old man's face was full of approval, his eyes lit up, and he raised his voice and asked, Fanner, my great-grandson. Please tell me what this move really is." Shangguan Rufan never heard his grandfather praise others. Although it was a bit difficult to practice this move, fortunately, half of what he understood was his gratitude to the wind killer in his heart, which was surging and rising one after another. At the same time, he was also proud to go to the sky and blurted out, "Grandpa, this move is called waiting for 15 eyes, one sword pierces chrysanthemum." What? Puff. To readers. P.S. The new book is about to start. We will first introduce 4 chapters of the plot for everyone to review, and the subsequent plot will continue to unfold. Stay tuned. Chapter 5. Hongyuan Tianjing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. To be seen for 15 days, a sword piercing the chrysanthemum. As the voice fell, Shangguan Rufan, the person involved, was feeling proud and thinking to himself, what's going on? Amazing, I only understood the strongest move of the West Wind Sunset sword technique in one morning. Grandpa, why don't you praise me a few more? Hee, I need to go see my brother.in.law later and thank him well. My brother.in.law is not always annoying, hee. Little did they know that at this time, the old man Shangguan and Shangguan Tingfeng's faces had already turned black. A moment ago, I was greatly pleased that my grandson could come up with this shocking move. The next moment, I immediately transformed into an angry tiger and glared fiercely at Shangguan Rufan, cursing loudly and saying, "Damn it, what a shameless name to suffer from, even 15 cents, chrysanthemums, hair flowers, fuck your mother. You are a shameful and refined beast, and all the things taught by the master have been thrown out as shit. Damn it, when did Shangguan's family see you, this shameless thing?" The classic scolding words of the old man reappeared, just like the Yangtze River breaking its banks, the Yellow River flooding, overwhelming the sky and earth, and moving forward. The young official, like the big boss with a mouth wide open, looked aggrieved and incredulous, tears streaming down his face. He couldn't figure out why his powerful move and vivid mnemonic had been scolded and criticized by his grandfather, which was unreasonable. The couple of Shangguan Tingfeng, sweating profusely, lowered their heads and wished to find a crack in the ground to crawl in. They said this, saying that others are disrespectful and refined. Are you very refined? At the same time, Shangguan Tingfeng hated his own son to death. Talk about it, what's not a good name for you, and even stab chrysanthemums with one sword. Damn it, this image is so impressive. Chang Yufeng knew her feelings were not good. Seeing her son's head lowered and his small hand holding the sword trembling uncontrollably, she rushed over with heartache and hugged the child in her arms. The old man became more and more angry as he looked at them. His beard blew wildly and pointed at the 3 of them, shouting, "Get out of here. Go back and copy my poetry and books 100 times. Don't leave the house until you finish copying them. Shame, shame." Shangguan Tingfeng is famous for not staying any longer. With the old man's personality, there may be some unacceptable punishment policy in the future. It's better to run away when he doesn't remember. Animal, don't you come back with me yet. Shangguan Tingfeng walked up to Shangguan Rufan and glared fiercely at his son before leaving. After the family of 3 left, the old man from Shangguan sat alone on the tiger chair, staring at the open door with clear eyes. After sitting for a cup of tea, he finally calmed down. After a while, he suddenly became angry and happy. Damn it, 15, chrysanthemum, it's really his motherly image. Although it doesn't sound good, that move coincides with my official West Wind Sunset sword. No, it's more than dozens of times more wonderful. Well, if it weren't for the guidance of a master, this move would have been included in the West Wind Sunset sword manual. Thinking of this, the old man Shangguan sat upright and called out in a deep voice, "Wang Tong, come out." As the sound fell, at some point, a mysterious person wearing a black robe appeared in the room. "Master." The old man squinted his eyes and looked at the mysterious person. "Wang Tong, these days you have been following Fan Air, recording his every move and reporting it to me. Well, with Rufan's intelligence, creating such a clever move is too strange. I still don't believe it, let me investigate it." If it's true. My prosperity in the official family is just around the corner. He said he doesn't believe it, but his expression betrayed him, with a proud expression, wishing the whole world would know that his grandson has such a powerful intelligence. Yes. The mysterious man Wang Tongmian remained expressionless and respectfully responded, disappearing into the study in the form of a ghost. The wind assassin, who returned to his residence, took a nap for a while, fell asleep and was full of energy. When he woke up, he began his cultivation plan sitting on the bed. Feng Jueyu crossed his legs, closed his eyes and pondered, lost in thought. All his spiritual energy was concentrated in the depths of his mind, recalling the various processes he had learned in his previous life. Deep mountain medicinal bathing, skin grinding and bone forging, washing the meridians and marrow, and undergoing rebirth and transformation. Feng Jueyu understands that since heaven has given him the opportunity to be reborn, facing a new world, he must live a more exciting life. Everything from the past will become his precious knowledge wealth, which can be used easily and effortlessly. But now this leather bag is a bit too weak. The foundation of martial arts is very important, not to mention whether the legendary martial arts masters of all dynasties really exist. Undoubtedly, every famous master has a deep foundation in martial arts. And these foundations are undoubtedly steadily honed from a young age. On the other hand, Feng Jueyu's body has never been tempered since childhood. It can be said that even if it is rotten and unbearable, it is light, like a pile of tofu residue, a puddle of mud on the evening of early spring. The weather was still quite cold. A cool breeze blew in through the window and hit Feng Jueyu, causing him to shiver. Suddenly, this coldness penetrated through the sweat pores all over his body and penetrated deep into his bone marrow, causing Feng Jueyu to shiver unnaturally. Damn it, what's going on? After spitting a grudge, he opened his eyes and saw a dramatic change in the scenery of the elegantly decorated and fragrant bedroom in front of him. At first, the scenery in the cabin suddenly became hazy, like a dream, with ripples rising. After a moment, the ripples slowly rippled and turned into a grayish-white mist all over the room. Feng Jueyu began to feel that his body was out of control, as if someone had pulled his soul out of his body. Accompanied by the cold wind echoing in the room, he stood up with billions of sweat on his body. It's so cold. Feng Jueyu couldn't help but embrace his arm, his lips and face turning pale at the same time, like the white impermanence of the Nine Netherworld. In the perception of the wind assassin, if his body undergoes such a change, he may not be as cold as if he had been thrown into an extremely cold storage for a day. The chill throughout his body seems to have thrown him into the deep sea for tens of thousands of miles. Even the wind assassin, who is so strong in spirit and willpower that he is not like a human, is a bit unable to support him. Cannot die, Feng Jueyu roared wildly, one hand tightly embracing his arm, while the other hand frantically wrapped the quilt and bedding on his body. 1 layer, 2 layers, 3 layers not enough. Feng Jueyu simply pulled down the bed curtain and wrapped himself in a huge human-shaped zongzi, but he could not stop the inexplicable coldness, even cold to the point of making a sound. The season has just entered spring, and the chill of the deep winter has not completely changed. There is still a thin layer of unmelted snow on the ground outside. In addition, his never-met fiancée A.E., Shangguan Ruoming, has always disagreed with their marriage and is often not in the small courtyard. She even takes away the maid, leaving only one left. This has led to the wind assassin, who is alone and wants to rush out and shout for help. Unfortunately, his servants are all on the other end of the yard, and he can't hear his cries as fine as mosquitoes and flies. The current Fengda assassin has fallen into a miserable situation of being called Tian Buing, and Di Ling. Shit, god damn it, how about playing with your grandpa? I won't let you go. The vengeful and unjust Fengda assassin gritted his teeth and endured the inexplicable extreme cold. As time passed, Feng Jueyu's body had become extremely stiff. If anyone came in and saw him, they might have thought that the uncle-in-law had turned into a cold corpse. Nearly half an hour later, when the wind assassin thought he would learn about the remaining life of the second in such a shameless way, he suddenly saw another self slowly magnifying in the mist, turning into a pure white gas shape, then shrinking again, flying up his head and rushing towards the heavenly spirit cap. Ling soul. Coming out of body. Feng Jueyu instinctively remembered a term that only existed in legends, and in an instant understood where his chill came from. I can't believe that the soul really exists. The stunned Feng Jueyu seemed to suddenly see an increase in his vision, following his soul into the depths of his mind. The gray and unknown realm seemed like the boundless Milky Way, with a small figure whose soul had transformed flying ahead. He could see it clearly and followed suit. Suddenly, Feng Jueyu felt that his body was no longer as cold as before, as if it had eased, and he seemed to be accustomed to this chill. After an unknown amount of time, golden spots shone far ahead, first scattered one or two, and then appeared in large areas in Feng Jueyu's field of vision. A few minutes later, a golden and dazzling Milky Way appeared in front of the soul little man, increasing in number. As he approached, Feng Jueyu finally realized that those golden star spots were actually small characters floating in the unknown space domain, one after another. The golden font is like the handwriting written by calligraphy masters who have been famous for a long time in their past lives. The strokes are swift and agile, flying and spinning, and the momentum is extremely extraordinary. Even Feng Jueyu, who has been practicing under his master since childhood and has a deep understanding of calligraphy, feels inferior. Hongyuan Tianjing. In front of Feng Jueyu, suspended 100 meters away, four golden and towering words caught his eye. His gaze swept over the three words, causing Feng Jueyu's nerves to twitch like lightning strikes. Good spirit, anyone who can write such magnificent calligraphy must be an expert. Feng Jueyu couldn't help but admire it, and then realized that the chill on his body was much less. Is it not because of the space here that the chill of the soul leaving the body can be dispelled? With this discovery, Feng Jueyu felt delighted and couldn't wait to control his spiritual power to fly towards the Hongyuan Heavenly Classic. In the distance, there are not only the four words Hongyuan Tianjing, but also many more articles written later, which must contain great secrets to readers. P.S. Updated, this is already the third book of Copper Plate. We sincerely request everyone's support. The ticket in your hand is the power of Copper Plate. Chapter 6. Washing the Meridian and Cutting the Marrow. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The soul mutation made Feng Jueyu eager to uncover the secret of the Hongyuan Classic. At this moment, the Wind Assassin suddenly had a special insight. This ultimate secret book, which brought him from a previous life to another world and was praised as the world's top secret by the Black and White sect and the ancient martial arts inheritance, must have a secret like a stone-shattering sky. From afar, wisps of light gray mist slowly dissipated, opening a heavenly path several zhang wide that led to the Hongyuan Heavenly Scripture. Below, as expected, the closer it was to the golden text, the faster the chill on Feng Jueyu's body decreased, until he could see all the writings clearly, and the bone-piercing cold current that seemed to enter the deep sea disappeared completely. As he approached the scripture, Feng Jueyu became increasingly excited, as if a force was pulling him towards this long-standing and unexplored secret. From the beginning, his heart only rippled layer upon layer like waves, until he came to the bottom of the scripture, as if flipping a towering tsunami, rolling up a huge storm. What a terrifying Hongyuan Tianjing, what secrets are hidden inside. The memories of his past life are surging in Feng Jueyu's mind. No one knew about the founding of Hongyuan's sect at the beginning, and it is known in the martial arts world that Hongyuan's sect has a treasure trove that has been passed down for hundreds of generations. No one has successfully cultivated it. Could it be that the heavens, seeing that I have done so many good deeds, intentionally rewarded me to cultivate this treasure trove? Feng Jueyu, who was overjoyed, looked up and saw the brilliant scriptures shining in the vast void. As he read them carefully, Feng Jueyu's heart became more and more frightened as he looked at them. Guy 1, there is no space between heaven and earth, beyond the realm of Tianjing, which cannot be weighed. In the void, loneliness without surface, there is no heaven or earth, no yin or yang, no sun or moon, no crystal or light, there is no east or west, no blue or yellow, no south or north, no softness or hardness, if nothing is said. All things are born from it, beyond the 8 tables. They gradually begin to divide and become subtle, thinking of the world and having Hongyuan. Hongyuan Shi, Hunyuan Kai, Tai Chu Xian, Yenichi, one breath is divided, life and death coexist, life and death are impermanent, impermanent life and death, it is called Yi. As Feng Jueyu couldn't help but recite the golden scriptures with excitement, the flickering words in the sky wandered around as if they had come to life. They slowly dispersed and reassembled, and the scriptures also changed one by one. After a short while, a new line of scriptures appeared in front of Feng Jueyu. At this moment, Feng Jueyu could no longer feel the chill on his body, and instead, a warm current appeared in his lower abdomen, the impermanence of life and death, self-grasping of yin and yang, profound meaning in the heart, 100 meridians connected together, life and death coming and going, soul residing on the spiritual platform, this leads to 100 transformations, and the divine arts are completed on their own. Is life and death impermanent? Self-grasping yin and yang. Isn't it true that I got a set of immortal cultivation classics after encountering the tide of time travel and then had a bad luck? At this moment, Feng Jueyu was already stunned. The meaning of this article is not difficult to understand. It is about life and death, yin and yang, and soul refining. Isn't it similar to the cultivation technique in the novel? The previous Hongyuan theory also confirmed the speculation of the Fengda assassin. Hongyuan, Hunyuan, and Tai Chu were a way for the Tao to evolve over time. It is said that before the creation of heaven and earth, there was no heaven or earth, it was Hongyuan. Then it developed into Hunyuan, and then Tai Chu. Starting from Tai Chu, it transformed from 1 Qi to 2 Yi, which is the yin-yang theory. Coincidentally, it coincides with the impermanence of life and death, and the self-grasping of yin and yang. Damn it, I'll give it a try at least thinking of this. Feng Jueyu sat empty in the air, his knees tightly coiled, his 5 hearts facing the sky, his mind unprecedentedly empty. At the same time, it seemed to be pulled by Feng Jueyu's aura, and the countless golden words disappeared and became a gray space. Only on top of its head, a large scattered cloud gathered. The cloud was gray and looked disgusting, but gradually condensed together, eventually transforming into a fist-sized air mass that rushed into the depths of Feng Jueyu's eyebrows. As soon as the air rushed in, it immediately turned into 2 air masses, one white and one black. The air flow quickly moved in both positive and negative directions from his acupoints such as Tiangai and Baihui, rushing into his skin and flesh tissue, meridian tissue, bones and bone marrow, organs, and limbs. Every corner of his body, even the smallest part, was not let go. Life and death are impermanent, holding on to yin and yang. Feng Jueyu couldn't help but burst into a golden light in his eyes. He clenched his hands tightly, and white and black qi appeared on his fists. This is in the depths of his mind, which is the Lingtai treasure realm, purely a spiritual cultivation. Despite this, Feng Jueyu still felt an uncontrollable and unbearable immense pain transmitted from every detail of his body. It seems like using thousands of steel needles to constantly pierce his skin and flesh, like burning, like freezing. Feng Jueyu let out a painful scream, tearing his heart and lungs apart. At this moment, he could clearly see the 2 black and white airflow raging and galloping inside his body, not caring whether he could endure it or not. The meaning lies in the heart, with 100 meridians connected, life and death coming and going, soul residing on the spiritual platform. This is 100 transformations, and the divine skill is completed on its own. Almost subconsciously, Feng Jueyu understood the concept of the Hongyuan Tianjing, which made Ben Shao endure great pain and undergo a transformation. The meaning in one's heart is to hold on to one's original intention, not to be defeated by pain. As long as one perseveres, the 100 meridians will be connected. With the physical condition of the death ghost Wen Jueyu, the most important years of foundation have been lost. Clearing the 100 meridians and washing the essence of the meridians are blessings from heaven for the wind assassin. The wind assassin is too happy to be resentful. It's just the agony of life and death that seems to have to be endured at least 100 times, otherwise why call it 100 twists and turns, and the divine skill will come naturally. Persist 100 times, your divine skill will come naturally. With his grandmother's help, can you reduce it a few times or even have it? It's not that Feng Jueyu's perseverance is not strong enough. On the contrary, as the king of assassins in his previous life, Feng Jueyu's endurance and perseverance were dozens of times stronger than ordinary people. But this kind of torture is a bit too cruel. Although it's not many times, each time the speed of applying qi in a clockwise or counterclockwise direction to the meridians is extremely slow, at least 10 minutes. 100 times is 1,000 minutes, over 16 hours. Oh my God, 100 times is 100 times, and I won't fight you to the end for the future of the new generation, for the glorious uncrowned evil emperor. Feng Jueyu gritted his teeth and persevered. Who am I, the uncrowned evil emperor? The #1 assassin in the world, able to endure what ordinary people cannot tolerate and do things that ordinary people cannot do. 100 washes of scriptures and Marrow are not easy tasks. Even though the willpower of the wind assassin was astonishing to an unparalleled extent, he was still tossed and turned until he persisted. The white and black airflow in his body stopped running and truly merged with his body. The wind assassin had not left the house for a day and a night. Returning to reality, the wind assassin just realized that he had a thick layer of black substance on his body, which was filthy inside his body. Oh my goodness, it's just a day and a night, comparable to 10 years of foundation. I have earned it. Ha! The wind assassin burst out laughing with joy. You know, this is a result that cannot be exchanged for 10 years of hard work in the previous life. In just one day and one night, he improved the physical fitness of the dead ghost Feng Jueyu by half. What a great joy! What's even more valuable is that this impermanent life and death force can not only utilize the two energies of life, death, yin, and yang in the body to expand meridians and improve meridians, but also strengthen the physical body. The vitality of life can nurture all things in the world and change destiny against the heavens. The energy of death can transform the power of evil and poison, and attack the enemy unprepared. One life, one death, one yin and one yang, working together, are essential skills for home travel and murder. Take a shower. Feng Jueyu cheered and quickly ran downstairs. When he arrived at the kitchen, there was no sign of anyone. Coincidentally, he didn't want anyone to know about his own situation. He quickly boiled water and moved the bathtub into a comfortable hot bath, washing away all the dirt on his body. Then, he threw several cotton quilts and other bedding into the bathroom for the servants to handle, and changed into a clean and simple white robe, looking in the mirror. Well, not to mention anything else, Feng Jueyu's face is definitely a disaster for the country and the people. He is handsome enough to fall into pieces, with black hair and jade face, as pure as jade fat, with upright facial features, and a jade tree facing the window. Why didn't Miss Shangguan take a liking to this little white face? It shouldn't be difficult to seduce a few officials like this. Feng Jueyu narcissistically touched his knife-shaved face, feeling very satisfied. Just then, a voice from outside that was even happier than him came in. Brother-in-law, brother-in-law. My brother-in-law is here. Just as the sound came in, Shangguan Rufan rushed up from upstairs, stomping on the wooden floor. When he arrived at the door, he seemed to break hard and politely knocked on the door. Brother-in-law, I'm Rufan. Are you there? Feng Jueyu tidied up the room briefly and sat behind the desk outside the living room. He coughed lightly and said, come in. The door opened and Shangguan Rufan, dressed in a pure white robe, stood in the room, holding a delicate wooden box. A unique fragrance of osmanthus cake overflowed from inside. Shangguan Rufan entered the room and saw Feng Jueyu sitting steadily on the book chair. He suddenly froze and said, Sister, brother-in-law, how do I feel that you are different? What's different? I can't say for sure, it's different from before anyway. Feng Jueyu lowered his head to look at himself and instantly understood. One day and one night, using the first layer of the Hongyuan heavenly scripture to cleanse the scriptures and slay the marrow, my body has greatly changed. In the past, Feng Jueyu seemed to be unable to wake up. Looking at him now, his spirit is 100 times stronger, his eyes are translucent, and his spirit is clear and collected, like a sword about to be unsheathed, giving people a feeling of being unable to compete. Subconsciously, Feng Jueyu realized that he had overlooked something. If it were Feng Jueyu from the past, even if he had the aura of an uncrowned evil emperor, he would be obscured by his lazy and lifeless appearance, and generally wouldn't notice him. But now it's different. The meridians have improved and doubled in size. The filth all over the body has been forced out of the body, like a newborn with a unique aura. Combined with the temperament of the king of assassins, it's strange not to be noticed. It would be great to let people know that there has been such a big change in their time the day before and after. As a killer, you must pay attention to hiding yourself, that's the way. Isn't Feng Jueyu's identity exactly a well-prepared protective umbrella? Cough, cough, are you here for me? Chapter 7. Extreme Worship. You are listening at novelfull.audio. For the Wind Assassin, he quickly restrained his own temperament changes. At the age of only 12, Shangguan Rufan couldn't feel anything. Seeing that he had regained his lazy appearance, Shangguan Rufan quickly stepped forward and placed the box on the table. He opened the hollowed-out box cover, and when he left the room, the aroma was strong. Hey, I'm here specifically to thank my brother. Law. This is the osmanthus cake I asked my servants to prepare. I'll treat you to it. Putting the lid of the box on the table, Shangguan Rufan stared at Feng Jueyu with his two watery big eyes, thinking to himself. Why didn't he find his brother. Law so handsome before? Why doesn't my sister agree to their marriage? Feng Jueyu didn't eat for a day and a night, and was tired for 24 hours. He was already starving and smelled the aroma of cake flowers in the room. His index finger twitched and he didn't hesitate, reaching out to pick up 2 pieces and stuffing them into his mouth. It's delicious. Are you interested? Thank you. The Wind Assassin thanked him while eating, and he was well deserved. It seems that this kid didn't save his sword, otherwise he wouldn't be so happy. Alas, poor Shangguan Ruowen probably won't be able to get up in 10.5 days. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 pieces of osmanthus cake were eaten. As the Wind Assassin looked up, he suddenly noticed that Xiao Rufan was still staring at him, his eyes super ambiguous. Damn it, is this a divine horse's gaze? I don't have the habit of carrying mountains on my back. Feng Jueyu wiped his mouth, sat upright, and said, Is everything okay? I need to rest now. If it's okay, you can go out. Upon hearing this, Xiao Rufan did not leave. Instead, he looked directly at Feng Jueyu and suddenly smiled. Brother-in-law, could you teach me another move? Can I teach you another move? Feng Jueyu said, Damn it, you think your move is white rice. How come, is that move enough? Then you're looking for the wrong person. Ask your elders. Why are you looking for me? Feng Jueyu. Xiao Rufan suddenly patted the table and exclaimed loudly, Don't think I don't know. I've secretly inquired, and the Shangguan family doesn't even have the move of waiting for 15 moments, stabbing chrysanthemums with one sword. Don't hide it from me, tell me, did you think of this move? With a cold throat, Feng Jueyu was stunned. In fact, although Xiao Rufan was young, his thinking was still very agile. After being scolded by the old man of Shangguan, the more he added up, the more he became uncomfortable. Why did the Shangguan family come up with a swordsmanship that even his grandfather didn't know? So the boy secretly inquired around, and when he went back to copy the poem, he dug out his family's secrets. He then ran to his father's secret room to look around and talk to him and his father. Finally, he found out that the Shangguan family did not even have the move taught by Feng Jueyu. So, Zairuofan came to raise a teacher to question and punish. Feng Jueyu also understood that this lie could not be kept hidden for too long. He didn't feel surprised and adjusted his clothes, raised his legs, blinked his eyes, and said, "You all know." "That's right," he came up with it. "What's wrong? Brother-in-law, do you know martial arts?" Everyone in the Shangguan family knows that Feng Jueyu is a useless scoundrel who cannot master literature or martial arts. When did he learn martial arts? No way, Feng Jueyu didn't want to admit. How did you come up with that? Feng Jueyu stood up and said with an enigmatic expression, "Is it difficult? Do you know the saying goes, the onlooker sees clearly? You and Shangguan Ruowen are not fast either. Why don't you just break down your moves when you see them?" A master. The child's thinking is too simplistic. He won't think about Feng Jueyu's qualifications or goals, and will only unilaterally worship what he can't do, while others can do it. So, in Xiao Rufan's eyes, Feng Jueyu's forced expression became a hidden expert. "I don't know martial arts, but I can see the loopholes and weaknesses in my moves with the naked eye and improve them. I have changed the unfathomable west wind sunset sword technique into an exquisite sword technique that even my grandfather praises. My brother-in-law is a genius. Although he doesn't know martial arts, his understanding of martial arts is unmatched by me. Why don't I have the intelligence of my brother-in-law?" In just a moment, Xiao Rufan had already idolized Feng Jueyu, quickly running over. Xiao Rufan almost looked at Feng Jueyu, who was taller than him by more than 2 heads, with a pleading gaze and said, "Brother-in-law, please teach me another move." Feng Jueyu looked at Shangguan Rufan with clear eyes, knowing that Zairuofan had a pure mind and that his bones were also capable of being made. He then developed a love for talent. The most crucial thing is that this kid seems to be at odds with Shangguan Ruowen. It's also good to use his hands to torture and torment Shangguan Ruowen. Looking down at Xiao Rufan with clear eyebrows and beautiful eyes, Feng Jueyu asked, "Do you want to learn?" "Well," Xiao Rufan nodded desperately. "If you want to learn, as long as my brother-in-law is willing to teach me, I will do whatever my brother-in-law asks me to do." Feng Jueyu touched his chin and pondered for a while before asking, "Do you know the rules?" After thinking for a moment, Xiao Rufan's spirit suddenly appeared. "Ah, I know. Brother-in-law, rest assured that I will not reveal a word about him to anyone." As he spoke, Xiao Rufan covered his mouth with his hand, showing loyalty. All right then." Feng Jueyu sat back and saw that Xiao Rufan had already drawn his long sword with an eager look. After calming down for a few breaths, he poured a basin of cold water over it and said, "There's no new move. You can practice the previous move first." "Ah." Xiao Rufan, holding a long sword and preparing to learn a new move from Feng Jueyu, was furious when he heard it. He said wrongly, You lied to me. What did I deceive you?" Feng Jueyu rolled his eyes and said, "Do you know the truth that gluttony is not worth chewing? How about genius? Since ancient times, all sword moves are the essence of essence. It's not easy to get one, let alone the others. I want to learn something else because I haven't practiced one move well. Finally, there is only a mixed but not refined ending. The moves must be practiced to the old ways and changes in order to give full play to their power. Often, one move can defeat the enemy, and even more can reach the peak, do you understand?" Xiao Rufan is not unintelligent, on the contrary, he is very intelligent. After hearing Feng Jueyu finish speaking, he suddenly understood and said, "What brother-in-law means is that I only practice the surface of that sword technique. Saying that even the fur has lifted you high." Feng Jueyu hit Xiao Rufan without hesitation. It is important to note that practicing martial arts is extremely difficult. Only by enduring hardships can one become a good person. A child with a pure nature is like a blank sheet of paper. To make him successful, one must first completely destroy his pride and complacency, and let him know what the true path to success is. Although I don't know martial arts, from my observation, that move can also breed more sword moves. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's a bridge between the past and the future. The important thing is that each change in the move can lead to many moves, such as stabbing or chopping. Feng Jueyu transformed into a martial arts master, provoking a river of suspense. He asked Xiao Rufan to demonstrate and change every move and form of the West Wind Falling Moon sword, and then pointed out various inappropriate aspects or made changes based on them. Sometimes there is a slight change in the landing point of the step, and the entire swordsmanship undergoes earth-shattering changes. What's even more terrifying is that Xiaoruofan discovered that even if he followed his brother-in-law's method, changing the direction of his wrist could lead to one or two fierce and unparalleled killing moves. After half an hour, Xiao Rufan was sweating profusely and thought to himself, "This is not the Western Wind Falling Moon sword of the Shangguan family. This is simply the pinnacle of killing." Staring at Feng Jueyu's endless conversation, Xiao Rufan's gaze went from disgust to surprise, then to envy and jealousy, and finally, it clearly turned into admiration. Extreme worship. Just a few places pointed out by Feng Jueyu, with slight changes, the West Wind Falling Moon sword immediately reached its peak. Even if one of the two people in the room said, listened, and didn't move a finger, it could still make him feel the unparalleled killing energy in sword rain blade wind everywhere. And this is just what Feng Jueyu said orally. If he could cultivate true qi, what would it look like? What a powerful intellect. Grandpa even said that he is not proficient in literature and martial arts. In terms of martial arts, he is not as capable as a person of all ages in the government. After speaking for half an hour, Feng Jueyu's mouth was dry and his tongue was dry. This was also because after being reborn in another world, he picked up his understanding and familiarity with martial arts and assassination techniques, and for the first time, he forgot his mind and explained the secret moves. His throat and eyes were smoking when he spoke directly. Suddenly, Feng Jueyu stopped and felt a mysterious aura approaching from outside, moving rapidly. He is definitely not a servant. Servants will not tiptoe or sneak around. Feng Jueyu stopped him, took a sip of water, and whispered, "Do you remember what I said?" Xiao Rufan nodded and then shook his head. These moves were too shocking for him to remember completely for a while. It's okay if you don't remember. First, you should memorize and practice the 3 changes I first talked about, and then use the moves to change. After practicing, come to me again. Feng Jueyu quickly finished, knowing that his behavior may have caught the attention of some hidden members of the Shangguan family, and he couldn't continue. Furthermore, practicing martial arts also requires understanding the artistic conception of swordsmanship through the individual's own understanding. Speaking it all out not only has no benefits for the future of Shangguan Rufan, but also has drawbacks. Drawing inferences from one example is the way. How could there be a saying that, master leads the way, practice is within oneself? Looking at Xiao Rufan at this moment, he looked stunned and couldn't move as if he were a statue. "Brother, are these all things you came up with? Others don't know, they think you're a martial arts master. Brother, you're so handsome. I admire you so much. You're so talented. Stop." Feeling dizzy and disoriented by Xiao Rufan's flattery, Feng Jueyu's sense of foreboding grew stronger and stronger. He promptly stopped Xiao Rufan from speaking incessantly, saying, "Stop it. If you want to learn, go back and practice quickly. Remember that genius is achieved through 1 point of intelligence, 1 point of luck, and 8 points of effort. Next time you say so much, be careful not to teach." Xiao Rufan trembled with fear and secretly said, "This is not possible. If you don't teach me how to improve, I won't even be able to think of your moves. Don't mention Dad, Grandpa also has to stand aside. Learn, I'll learn." Xiao Rufan nodded and stormed away, brother-in-law, I'm leaving. Remember, what happened here can't be transmitted to the ears of a third person, otherwise you don't have to come. Also, bring more osmanthus cake next time, said Feng Jueyu with a stern expression. Got it. Xiao Rufan's voice gradually faded away. Feng Jueyu walked to the window and looked at the spring scenery and lush green willows in the garden. He suddenly noticed that behind the nearby flower garden trees, a dazed shadow flickered and disappeared. It seems that going to the official family is not easy either. Did I make it too obvious? To readers. P.S. When I think of osmanthus cake, I even tried it once with copperplate. It's made with authentic osmanthus, and the taste makes my mouth water now. Chapter 8. Deadly Sword Technique. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Feng Jueyu was almost addicted to practicing the Hongyuan Heavenly Classic, and for the next half-month, he immersed himself in the pleasure of practicing divine skills almost every day. For nearly 8 hours a day, except for eating and sleeping, he seized every opportunity to practice in the Hongyuan space. What is particularly pleasing is that the first layer of the Hongyuan Heavenly Classic can absorb the boundless Hongyuan spiritual energy into the body, and then use the impermanence of life and death divine skill to transform the two energies of life and death. It repeatedly washes the meridians of Feng Jueyu in the body. In just half a month, Feng Jueyu has transformed from an ordinary person without true energy to a high-level expert in virtual martial arts. As a result, the Wind Assassin became even more content and unable to extricate himself. And just as Feng Jueyu was almost crazily practicing, someone in the Shangguan mansion outside the small building began to pay attention to the microsecond changes inside. Firstly, the expectant uncle who used to go out for bird walks and farting as soon as the Dongshan mountain rose in the past, surprisingly, the front door was not standing tall and the second door was not leaving. Even the tea houses and fireworks places he must go to every day couldn't see his shadow. Another one is Shangguan Rufan, the young master of the Shangguan family. He doesn't know what kind of evil wind he drew. Since the day he stabbed Shangguan Rufan's backyard with a sword, he would run to the small building heading towards the east courtyard on time every morning. That's the residence of the prospective uncle, which everyone in the upper government detests, and even the old master often doesn't go in and out. What's wrong with this young master? Why go there every day? Or rather, when did two people have such a deep friendship? Many people are puzzled by what the two of them have done inside, only occasionally hearing bursts of excited laughter coming from the room, and then the entire yard once again returns to calm, exuding a strange and mysterious atmosphere. Shangguan Lingfeng's study. Wang Tong stood in the center of the study, slightly drooping his head, carefully talking about the things that the old man had asked him to investigate for half a month. Young master, I have a very regular daily routine, and I only see these things. The old man from Shangguan held a purple and golden incense pot, and his two tiger eyebrows furrowed tightly, not angry but imposing, leading to a question. What did he go to Feng Jueyu's room for? Wang Tong lowered his head lower, concealing his shame and saying, Please forgive me, master. I haven't heard anything about the young master's cultivation. Every time I enter the courtyard and approach the small building, there is no sound inside, or maybe what they say has nothing to do with cultivation. Shangguan Lingfeng was so shrewd that his tiger body trembled under his fame. What do you mean is that they noticed you were following and didn't want you to hear them? This. Wang Tong hesitated and shook his head with a bitter smile, feeling very helpless. As a trusted guard by the old man's side, Wang Tong has extraordinary skills. He doesn't want to believe that being discovered as a master in the Xuanwu realm in front of an empty martial arts realm and a coward who doesn't even understand martial arts is such a big joke. After thinking for a moment, Wang Tong said, I dare to guess that there are two possibilities for this matter. Let's talk about it. Shangguan Lingfeng calmly let out a low shout, his gaze fixed on Wang Tong. Wang Tong boldly said, Firstly, the young master's moves were taught by his uncle. Uncle has always been reluctant to reveal himself and deliberately hides himself. In fact, he possesses exceptional skills, and it is very likely that he has reached the level of a subordinate or even higher. Speaking of which, Wang Tong sneered at himself and thought to himself. Is this possible? Just relying on that trash. Even if he doesn't give up, at his age, it's impossible for him to reach the Xuanwu realm, even the Lingwu realm. How did you discover my existence? So Wang Tong continued, however, this point can basically be ruled out, after all, my uncle is not very old now. Shangguan Lingfeng also believes that Wang Tong's analysis is reasonable. Although the Feng family was a well-known family on the mainland many years ago, it has since fallen. Feng Jueyu has been taken over by him since he was young. It can be said that the former grew up under his own nose. Does he know martial arts, and I don't know? Well, that's impossible. I know best how much he has, concluded Shangguan Lingfeng. Wang Tong nodded and continued, that's the second possibility. In my opinion, there should be some kind of secret script on Uncle's body that contains extremely powerful power. Secret script. Shangguan Lingfeng first thought for a moment, then sneered and waved his hand, saying, this is even more impossible. Even if he happens to get the secret script by chance, it will probably be seen as useless in his eyes. This little bastard, apart from the Spring Palace map, is not interested in any books. Sigh. Shangguan Lingfeng let out a dejected sigh, with a tired expression of resentment and guilt on his face. Well. Wang Tong gave a bitter smile and took a step back, bowing respectfully. I won't be able to guess. Shangguan Lingfeng looked up at the flowers and trees on the ceiling, pondering for a long time before asking, you said that every time Rufan comes out of his room, his swordsmanship will greatly improve. You can see each move clearly and carefully. When it comes to the rapid growth of Shangguan Rufan in the past half-month, Wang Tong couldn't help but shudder. His every move was as if someone was holding a carving knife and deeply carving it in his heart. Not to mention Shangguan Rufan, even the great master of Xuanwu realm was greatly benefited after reading it. After thinking about it, his cultivation increased day by day. Where will I forget? I will never forget it in this lifetime. I saw it very clearly. Wang Tong clenched his fists, his face suddenly showing a flush of excitement, as if he had used a stimulant when mentioning those sword moves. Shangguan Lingfeng also noticed the change in Wang Tong's heart and his eyes were fixed, saying, can you demonstrate a few moves to take a look? Yes, master. Wang Tong took a few steps back and demonstrated to Shangguan Lingfeng in the study hall, using his middle finger as his sword. This is the last move of the Shifeng sword, and there are 20.8 changes that will follow. The first one. As he spoke, Wang Tong rolled up his sleeve and robe, raised his fingertips together, and his sharp energy surged wildly. The exquisite sword moves of each style and move were unleashed from under his hand, full of killing energy, the sixth type. With a change in his finger sword, Wang Tong transformed from a proud and erect posture to a bowing posture with a cat waist. His sword finger's sharp energy was directed 4 feet above the ground, indicating that this move was a direct attack on the lower plate 3 times, with astonishing speed, like lightning and thunder, the 9th type. Killing move, the king and his entire body were pressed against the ground when suddenly he bounced up, leaning forward and rushing towards him like an anti-physical rule, turning into a shooting star. The sword pointed to the key point of his throat with just 3 moves. Wang Tong was panting heavily. With the eye power of Shangguan Lingfeng, he would be shocked to see that even with Wang Tong's years of immersive swordsmanship, even after using these moves, his strength was still lacking. Obviously, he had not accurately grasped the true mystery of the sword and was still in the process of refining it. Even so, Shangguan Lingfeng was still stunned and shocked. Although these sword moves may seem simple, none of them are the pinnacle of ancient and modern killing moves. Each move and form does not require a single hit. If practiced proficiently, one can defeat the enemy's head level by 10 meters. And this is not yet a shocking place. The most terrifying thing is that these sword moves have evolved from every move of the Shangguan family's West Wind Falling Moon sword, with nearly 28 changes, many of which fundamentally subvert the so-called West Wind Falling Moon sword technique, possessing a unique style, a murderous aura, and unparalleled the killing sword, the killing move. The artistic conception of killing pointed by the sword, invincible. This kind of swordsmanship has never been seen before and is unprecedented in history. It can be said that it is unprecedented and not a big story, it's too scary. Having lived for more than 70 years, Shangguan Lingfeng admitted to knowing countless swordsmanship techniques in the world, but he was still amazed. He had never seen such exquisite, sharp, and domineering swordsmanship before. Is this still my Shangguan Shifeng Falling Moon sword? No, definitely not. This is a deadly sword, a deadly move, a pinnacle skill. Wang Tong withdrew his sword finger and stood in the room like a javelin. Upon hearing the trembling words of the old master, he gave a bitter smile and said, "I am incompetent. I used to think that I was extraordinary, but what I have seen, heard, and felt in the past half-month has made me know what a frog in the well is. Although I remember these 28 changes, I still cannot understand the profound and unparalleled artistic conception of them every day and night. I really don't know who created this peerless sword technique. If I had the opportunity to meet the senior master who created this sword technique, it would be kneeling down and kowtowing hundreds of times." With a loud sound, even my subordinates are willing. Shangguan Lingfeng had more experience than Wang Tong, and after being shocked, he quickly regained his composure. However, his heart was even more shaken than Wang Tong's. "Who is that?" Shangguan Lingfeng involuntarily twitched the corners of his mouth and sneered, "Killer. Killer." Wang Tong looked up in surprise. Shangguan Lingfeng said decisively, "It can only be a killer, or a unique killer in the world, the ancestor of the killer." Wang Tong suddenly woke up and said, "Master, do you mean that outsiders have come to our house?" Speaking these words, Wang Tong shivered unnaturally. Although the Shangguan family is not a true martial arts aristocratic family, it is at least one of the top wealthy families in Tianjing city. With the inheritance of martial arts, there are countless experts hidden in the family who guard the house in secret. The Shangguan old man is also a top-notch expert in the Tianwu realm. The Shangguan family, with such a profound background, surprisingly did not notice anyone entering, and the strength of those who sneaked in is evident. Although they may not know the other party's background, such people should never be provoked, and on the contrary, they should be polite and respectful. Without answering Wang Tong's words, after pondering for a while, Shangguan Lingfeng ordered, "Starting from today, all the secret guards protecting Feng Jueyu will be withdrawn, and the protection area will be removed from 100 meters away. To ensure the safety of Jueyu's travel, from the original 2 people to 6 people, we must not let the previous incident happen again." Accompanied by the excited cheers of Shangguan Lingfeng, Wang Tong dared not rush out of the door and proceeded to execute Shangguan Lingfeng's orders with great enthusiasm. His grandmother, what kind of expert did Feng Jueyu meet and hide in my Shangguan family? Shangguan Lingfeng's old eyes suddenly burst into a brilliant star-like light, and his expression was very excited. He looked at the door and said, "Someone, come and call Feng Jueyu for me." Not long after, a servant in green clothes and a small hat returned and reported, "Old master, uncle has gone out." "Has he gone out?" Lingfeng, a high-ranking official, was brewing to use some kind of indirect method to extract information about the secret of the expert from the mouth of the wind assassin. Upon hearing this sentence, he suddenly turned around and said, "What did he go out for? Didn't anyone tell him that Ruomen would come back this afternoon? Damn it, find it for me, quickly find it, and bring my uncle back to me." Chapter 9. Heart of Benevolence. You are listening at novelfull.audio. However, in the afternoon, sporadic light rain began to fall over Tianjing city. Pearl-like raindrops first fell sparsely, and in less than a quarter of an hour, the rain gradually grew stronger, like a natural curtain draped down from the sky. The air of the imperial capital was filled with hazy rain, like clouds and mountains shrouded in mist, adding a faint sadness to the hearts of the people of Tianjing city. Feng Jueyu walked out of the upper official's house with an oil paper umbrella and walked step by step towards the south of the city along the spacious street. The street vendors have long held up big umbrellas, and some have ended a day's business and returned home early to gather with their wives and children. There are not many people on the street, but this weather has set fire to the numerous restaurants, tea houses, and green moon houses on both sides of the street. The fusion of cooking smoke and rain mist, the antique architecture, and the silhouette of passers-by rushing by in the rain have woven a beautiful picture of ancient times. The noise in the tavern and tea house, the barking of dogs in residents' homes, the crying of babies, and the sound of a man from a certain family playing with his wife for gambling all tell Feng Jueyu that this is a different world. Being on a different plane from the original world. It is rare for Feng Jueyu to have the mood of strolling in the rain, but his seemingly leisurely pace carries a hint of strangeness. The wind assassin suddenly feels that there seems to be something important today, but it is unclear what it is. Unexpectedly obtaining the Hongyuan heavenly scripture, Feng Jueyu's body underwent a complete transformation in half a month. Not only did his meridians expand a lot, but he also eliminated the old troubles of the death ghost Feng Jueyu. The vitality of Hongyuan space indeed took over the creation of heaven and earth. For a whole 17 years, his body, which was like tofu residue, was almost recuperated in just half a month. However, Feng Jueyu has always had extremely high expectations of himself, and simply expanding his meridians is far from enough. Therefore, Feng Jueyu remembered to use the medicinal bathing method taught by his master in the previous life, preparing to thoroughly regulate his skin, texture, flesh, and even bones. So there are big things that are not as important as one's own body. There's a pharmacy here, that's it. While pondering, Feng Jueyu walked to the rainy Tianjing city and finally found his destination. In front of him was a very small pharmacy, with an area of about 20 square meters. He put away his oil paper umbrella and threw it twice. The wind assassin walked into this small pharmacy called Jishifang, swaying his pure Tianjin dandy. Entering the shop, Feng Jueyu roughly observed that it was cold and deserted with little business. On the left was a row of baskets hanging up to dry scarce and inferior medicinal materials, while on the right was a cabinet with a roof and a wall. The quantity was not large, and it was obvious that there were no high-quality goods. An elderly man leaning on his chin was dozing off by the high counter, seemingly unaware that there was business coming to his store. To give the impression of a wind killer, this shop is lifeless. If it were placed in the market economy of the past life, it wouldn't be long before it had to close down. There is also a little girl in the shop who looks like she is 15 or 16 years old, squatting in a basket even larger than her, distributing medicinal herbs. Due to facing away from Feng Jueyu and unable to see clearly, Feng Jueyu didn't pay much attention. Walking straight to the counter and knocking on it, Feng Jueyu said, "Shopkeeper, buy medicine." The old man woke up in shock, and the little girl also turned her head at the same time. Seeing the business coming, her big eyes, like copper bells, naturally showed a hint of joy. Before the old man could speak, she walked over with a fragrant breeze. "Young master, what medicinal herbs do you need? Is there a shop opened by a doctor?" The little girl is very delicate, with fair skin and a messy head of black silk tied up. Her eyebrows are like silkworms lying horizontally on her round big eyes, and she has a pretty nose and pale pink thin lips. When she speaks, a pure aroma wafts from her mouth, and even the strong medicinal taste in the shop cannot be concealed. It is obvious that she often bathes with special spices or comes with sachets. Based on Feng Jueyu's evaluation and recognition of beautiful women, this little girl is definitely a beautiful embryo. She does not have the heavy powder smell on the body of a wealthy lady, appearing particularly pure and refined, which makes me still pity her. The key is the little girl's eyes, clear and devoid of any trace of power or excess. At first glance, they are innocent and innocent. Feng Jueyu only glanced at it and felt a good impression in his heart. At this moment, the old man also woke up and looked at the young gentleman, who was not dressed in fancy clothes, with a gaze that was completely different from that of the little girl. Since he wanted to strengthen his body, Feng Jueyu naturally had already prepared a prescription based on the memories of his past life. Moreover, in the past half-month, he was afraid that the medicinal materials in this world would be different from those in his past life. He spent a lot of effort studying medical classics, medical books, and other things, and finally made a choice in terms of medicinal properties and wrote a good prescription. Follow the instructions on this prescription and make sure the quantity is correct. The prescription used by Feng Jueyu is a medicinal bath prescription taught to him by his master in the past. It not only has the effects of strengthening the foundation and promoting blood circulation, but also is mixed with silk toxicity to stimulate the potential of the body. Although the old man had been prescribing medicine and working as a doctor for many years, he couldn't understand Feng Jueyu's intentions. He reached out and took the prescription over to take a closer look, and his eyebrows furrowed. The prescription was incredibly poisonous. "Young master, are you?" The old man looked at Feng Jueyu in confusion. Feng Jueyu knew it would be like this, so he smiled nonchalantly and said, "No defense, just follow the instructions above." The old man is an ordinary person. Although he doesn't know what Feng Jueyu wants to do, he is not interested in taking care of it. He sighed and handed the prescription to the little girl. "Tong-er, go and catch it." Tong-er took the prescription and quickly grabbed a pair of medicinal herbs that Feng Jueyu needed, packed them, and carried them over with a smile. "Thank you, young master, for offering 25 copper coins," she said. Feng Jueyu nodded, took out the consistent copper coin from his sleeve, handed it over, and then took the medicinal herb. Suddenly, he said, "Uncle, what's your surname?" The old man clasped his fists and said, "Little old man, Liida." "That's Mr. Li, nice to meet you." Feng Jueyu asked, "Mr. Li, there's something I need to trouble you with. May I ask if it's possible?" "Young master, please speak." Feng Jueyu said, "It's like this. I need these medicinal herbs for a long time, but due to some reasons, I can't buy them all at once. So I plan to come and collect them every once in a while. Can I set up an account here, pay some deposit first, come and collect them at any time, and ask Mr. Li to keep it confidential for me? How about that?" Feng Jueyu's intention is very obvious. The prescription for medicinal bathing is currently unknown. Originally, the Shangguan family was the largest medicinal center in Tianjing city, but that was the Shangguan family's territory. Without strong self-protection ability, he did not want the Shangguan family to notice him. In addition, buying too many medicinal herbs also caught the attention of those with intentions. It was precisely because of this that Feng Jueyu deliberately walked a long way to the south of the city and chose a prescription with very low passenger flow, so that people would not be aware of it. In addition, he also had another thought in mind. If it is inconvenient to take a medicinal bath at Shangguan's house and he can reach an agreement with Jishifang, he plans to simply go to Jishifang for a medicinal bath. Just like a physical therapy center in a past life, isn't it also available? This was supposed to be a normal transaction, but after hearing this, Liida glanced at Tong-er and shook his head. Tong-er said, "Young master, this is probably not possible." "Why?" Feng Jueyu was taken aback for a moment. "Do you still have money to earn?" "I didn't hear it wrong, did I?" As if seeing Feng Jueyu's thoughts, Liida sighed and said, "To be honest, the medicinal herb business is not easy to do nowadays. On this day, most of the business in the southern city has been occupied by the 3 major medicinal workshops. Their doctors have superb medical skills, and coupled with the wide variety of good medicines, small shops like Little Old Man's cannot last long, so there is no need to continue opening them." Liida pulled Tong-er over, and at this moment, Tong-er's tears also fell with a patter. He was very reluctant. Liida patted Tong-er's shoulder with affection and said to Feng Jueyu, "Our ancestors and grandchildren depend on each other. We originally planned to open a small shop in Tianjin city to save Tong-er's wedding makeup, so that he could find a good family, and the little old man would have no regrets for this life. But business is currently very sluggish, so instead of losing everything, it's better to sell the store and leave more money for Tong Heir to make a living in the future. So, I'm really sorry for the young master's request. Li Yi finished speaking and coughed urgently, indicating that his health was also not good. Feng Jueyu understood that this was the result of industry monopoly. The three major families of Shangguan, Chen, and Su in Tiannan City mainly engaged in the business of medicinal herbs, and implemented monopolies within the city. This could easily lead to the inability of small businesses in the industry to continue their business. Typically, they would eat meat and not let others drink soup, but it was not considered immoral. After all, the market is like a battlefield, and whoever has the means can live longer. The more Li Yi spoke, the more sad he became, with a strong sense of being unable to let go and unable to return to heaven. Tong Heir burst into tears and hugged her grandfather tightly, crying and saying, "Grandpa, stop talking. Tong Heir won't get married in this lifetime. Tong Heir will take care of her grandfather for the rest of her life." Li Yi's heart warmed and he kindly rebuked, "Silly girl, you're just talking nonsense. I don't have much time, which has delayed you. How can I justify your deceased parents? Besides, my illness." Halfway through, Li Yi coughed violently again. Tong Heir quickly helped Li Yi, feeling very worried as she wiped her grandfather's back with her little hand and shook her head desperately. "Grandpa, stop talking, your illness will definitely be cured." Tong Heir even sold herself to treat Grandpa. Feng Jueyu has completely understood that love is a human tragedy. The industry monopoly and suppression of small businesses will lead to the displacement of some grandparents and grandchildren, along with a half-century-old man suffering from tuberculosis. They are truly a poor pair of grandparents and grandchildren. In his past life, Feng Jueyu couldn't bear to see such a scene. Even as an assassin, Feng Jueyu harbored a deep desire to help the world. He once saved many poor people in dire straits without paying a penny. Moreover, when he didn't accept the assassin's mission, he had another identity in the martial arts world. A private doctor, known as the Holy Hand returning to heaven. So even if he doesn't want to expose his identity, he still needs to take care of it. Ding Qin looked at the poor grandparents and grandchildren, and suddenly came up with a plan. Feng Jueyu interrupted, "Is my father-in-law suffering from tuberculosis?" Chapter 10. Infinite Needle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There is a saying in medical skills, and practitioners need to understand. Look, smell, ask, and cut in order to be considered good doctors. Feng Jueyu once studied medical skills with his master for over a decade. When it comes to treating diseases and saving lives, even some renowned experts and professors cannot compare with him. In his past life, the four big characters, Holy Hand returns to heaven, were the golden signboards in the martial arts world. He was once praised for throwing 1,000 gold coins to seek the Holy Hand, but he couldn't stand it at a glance. How could this tuberculosis patient be a rare expert in the wind? Just by listening, one can tell that the old man is critically ill. Li Yi has been immersed in medical skills for many years, naturally understanding the principles of looking, smelling, asking, and regulating. However, he understands even more clearly that these four words may seem and may sound simple, but in reality, it is even more difficult to practice them to a certain extent. With a full 30 years of medical experience, Li Yi believes that he cannot match Feng Jueyu's ability to diagnose symptoms solely based on the word smell. But upon hearing this, Li Yi's mouth widened in surprise. Does the young master also know the art of medicine? Feng Jueyu did not reply, but instead said on his own, illness caused by overwork, withered lung meridians, blocked qi stagnation, and poor regulation of qi. What else can it be if it's not tuberculosis? My father-in-law's illness should have been accumulated over many years. Originally, my father-in-law's medical skills were nothing, but 5 years ago, he underwent a disastrous transformation, leading to a low mood and a lack of thought for tea and food. This worsened the condition, and when my father-in-law woke up, he was powerless to turn the tide. Since ancient times, even the most skilled doctors cannot cure their own ailments. Therefore, my father-in-law's condition has worsened in the past 5 years and has become increasingly severe, reaching the end of his life. Are you right? Listening to Feng Jueyu's endless words, the eyes of the grandparents and grandchildren gradually widened beyond the eyes of a cow. Seeing Feng Jueyu's slender figure and weak hands, they thought he was just a poor scholar. However, they didn't expect that a few words would hit the ground. Li Yida's illness did indeed worsen 5 years ago. Originally, he had a son, who was Li Tongzhi's father, but unfortunately passed away 5 years ago. Li Tongzhi's mother was heartbroken and passed away as a result. Li Yida lost his beloved son and daughter-in-law overnight. He suffered a serious illness and then lost the best time to treat tuberculosis. As a result, his condition worsened and he now has 10 months of life. In fact, Feng Jueyu also saw that this world is not much different from the ancient times of the original world. The doctors here have excellent medical talents for internal injuries and external injuries. But there is no way to deal with real organ diseases and internal diseases. Even bacterial infections can take a person's life. Moreover, ancient tuberculosis was an incurable disease, and there was no other way to delay the condition. So, if Li Yida changes his style, he may also plan ahead for his only granddaughter. But after hearing about Feng Jueyu's diagnosis of tuberculosis, the grandparents and grandchildren were shocked. Previously, Feng Jueyu mentioned that he had contracted tuberculosis, and although Li Yida was not surprised, he could guess the disease by and large. But without any pulse or questioning, one can tell when their condition worsens and reaches the point of dying, which is really amazing. There are many doctors in the world who are brilliant, but those who can truly achieve the goal of being like Feng Jueyu are rare and pitiful. What's even more incredible is that the person who said these words was actually a young man who looked less than 20, which is shocking. Surprised and amazed, Li Yida looked at Feng Jueyu carefully. He knew that he had met a master today. The handsome and charming young master in front of him had such great talent and was so proficient in medical science. It was unbelievable. Li Yida suddenly stood straight, seriously clasped his fists and bowed deeply, his eyes showed inexplicable admiration, and said, "Young master's medical skill is impressive, and I can't see it. Please forgive me." Feng Jueyu didn't know the details of Li Yida, but Li Tong'er knew it all too well. His grandfather was a famous doctor in the south of the city, who had been treating the illnesses of his neighbors for many years. Except for a few legendary experts in the world, it was difficult for ordinary people to catch his grandfather's eye. Today, Grandpa Yuran had great respect for a young man who was not much older than him, but he fell short of the little girl's eye. Looking at Feng Jueyu's almost supernatural and stunning face, Tong'er's face flashed with an unnatural blush. This young master has excellent appearance and medical skills, just like the young handsome talents favored by those official ladies. If only I could talk to him in ancient times, a young girl of 15 or 16 years old had already matured in her mind. It was not an exaggeration to say she was an adult, and it was unnatural. Tong'er did not even notice that she was deeply attracted by Feng Jueyu's words, actions, demeanor, and appearance. Her eyes were clear with curiosity and shyness, and even a little surprise. But soon, Tong'er lowered her head, her face flushed with pig blood, and she muttered to herself, "What am I thinking? Tong'er, you're not familiar with this young master either. Isn't that embarrassing? Even if I'm interesting, the young master won't take a liking to me. People like him will definitely be pursued by many in the future. Oh, what am I thinking? Love has just begun, suitable for a girl at Tong'er's age." However, her conservative mindset prompted her to deeply blame her own thoughts. She secretly looked up at Feng Jueyu and saw that Feng Jueyu's gaze was always on Li Yida. Li Tong'er then relaxed a lot. It was better not to be discovered by him, otherwise he would have lost his life. Feng Jueyu didn't pay attention to Li Tong'er's behavior and gave him a deep glance. He said, "You don't need to be polite, my father. In law. We are also peers, so let's talk about the current situation. My father. In law, let's discuss. If I can cure your illness and allow you to continue operating the store without having to sell it out, and there is some improvement in the short term, can you be willing to cooperate with me to do this business well?" For Liida, this was the most unrealistic thing he had experienced in many years. He watched as his small shop, which had been running for many years, was closing down and soon leaving the world and entering the underworld. Suddenly, such a huge pie fell from the world, and it happened to fall on his head like a book. It was unbelievable that everything he saw and heard was true. This is undoubtedly delivering charcoal in the snow. No, it should be a gift of rebirth. In fact, Liida is not willing to sacrifice his life. He just can't let go of his beloved granddaughter. The thought of leaving Tong-er alone in this cold and ruthless world makes Liida reluctant to part ways. At this moment, Feng Jueyu appeared. Appearing like a savior regardless of whether Feng Jueyu is exaggerating or not, at least there is now some hope. "Tong-er, hurry up, look at the tea." Liida excitedly walked out from behind the counter, trembling all over. Tong-er was also dumbfounded by Feng Jueyu's words, and an inexplicable surprise stirred up in her heart like a surging sea. Should Liida let out a low cry? "I'm afraid she won't wake up for a day and a half." Ah. Ah. "Yes, Grandpa, young master, please sit down." "Ah no, I'll go get a chair, I'll go see tea." The little girl was at a loss, but undoubtedly, her heart was filled with joy. "My grandfather has been saved. Young master, please." Liida was also very excited. Whether the matter was successful or not, he was very grateful for Feng Jueyu's heart alone. The old man was a straightforward person, with no business coming to his doorstep. He simply closed the small shop, closed the door, and let Feng Jueyu into the inner room. At this time, fragrant tea was already served on the table in the simple residential house. Although the quality was not very good, it was also the best kind of tea he could offer. Tong-er stood by the table eagerly, staring straight at Feng Jueyu without even realizing her shyness. She now only hoped that what Feng Jueyu said was true and that her grandfather could still be saved. It doesn't matter if you marry Feng Jueyu to repay your kindness, let alone sitting across from him is still a handsome young master. Feng Jueyu and Liida sat down, and Liida urgently asked, "Excuse me, young master. Did you just say that I was saved, but really?" Feng Jueyu smiled and pursed his lips, nodding, "Of course it's true, father. In law. Please extend your hand out." Hook his finger. Liida understood what Feng Jueyu was going to do and quickly reached out his hand. Feng Jueyu reached out and placed his finger on Liida's pulse, causing the room to fall into a dead silence. Both grandparents and grandchildren dared not speak out, fearing that it would disturb Feng Jueyu's diagnosis and affect his judgment. However, their eyes were about to pop out of their sockets, staring at Feng Jueyu tightly. For a long time, Feng Jueyu withdrew his hand, and the hearts of both his ancestors and grandchildren were raised to their throats. However, the next words would determine whether the two of them will be happy in the future. How could they not worry? It can also be said that up to now, Feng Jueyu has been joking around. No one is sure if he has the ability. What if he casually fabricates? What if there is another intention? But there's no other way. It's better to have hope than no hope, let's just say it's true. Take the needle. Feng Jueyu first touched his chin and thought for a while, only for a short while. Suddenly, he laughed and waved his big hand, rolling up his sleeve. Tong-er's heart trembled as she listened, and she exclaimed, "Yes, enjoy." She quickly ran to her grandfather Liida's bed and took a set of fine silver needles from the medical equipment. The Uncrowned Evil Emperor is a title bestowed upon Feng Jueyu by the martial arts world as an assassin. And the Holy Hands Return to Heaven represents another identity on the black and white sides. The Evil Emperor's twin treasures, punished to the heavens, refer to the two close divine weapons of Feng Jueyu. Punish the sword and the heavenly needle. The punishment sword is used for murder, the heavenly needle is used to save people, two completely different things, but they hold an unbeatable position in the martial arts world. Unfortunately, when Feng Jueyu crossed the river, both treasures were lost, and now they can only be used as needles by Liida. Spread the needle sleeve flat, and Feng Jueyu extended his hands and 4 fingers to slide over it. A familiar feeling surged in his heart as his slender fingertips slid, unconsciously immersing himself in the essence. Good needle. Feng Jueyu nodded and generously praised. Suddenly, his hands moved together, and he slid smoothly. He twisted out 6 slender silver needles on his hands, almost hair-like, with surprising speed. In an instant, Liida felt a gust of wind blowing in front of him, and Feng Jueyu disappeared without a trace. Then, a slight and imperceptible coolness seeped into his body, including Qi Zhe, Fei Yu, Gao Blind, Tai Shi, Ran Gu, and Zhu Sanli. After years of practicing medicine and being familiar with the technique of filiform needles, Liida knew that Feng Jueyu had already injected. Not to mention the technique, just this blink of an eye's effort was enough to accurately insert 6 silver needles into the 6 major acupoints at the same time, which was enough to make Liida furious. Without waiting for him to exclaim in admiration, the next moment, Liida realized that he had met someone, or perhaps not at all, because he never knew anyone could apply the technique of the filiform needle to such an extent. Even if I have heard of it, I have never heard of it. What is the technique of 6 needles simultaneously and twisting and lifting with 9 tremors? Liida couldn't help but ask, although he knew that speaking was a taboo in treating symptoms. Feng Jueyu smiled lightly, his lazy expression disappeared, and his whole body was filled with confidence as if he had changed someone else. Hui Hao Tianjing. To readers. P.S. That's all for today's 3 shifts. The new book has gained popularity in the early stages, so please support it. I have a friend who recommended reading books, and I have already thanked them.